To our board meeting tonight. Appreciate you being here. And if you would stand with me and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Let's see where I have that. What did I do with that special? I'm going to borrow yours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Tonight we are pleased to recognize two of our latest schools of character. Over the years we've added some schools. Back in 2012 it was, which one was it? I can't remember. McKelvey, I think. Ross and Oak Brook was last year. This year we have two more schools that have achieved that distinction. We're very proud of them, Craig and Barrett's Elementary Schools. In addition, we're going to hear from Ameren, Missouri regarding some financial incentives that Parkway has received from Ameren. So at this point, could I please welcome Eric Luters, Director of Sustainability and Purchasing, to come to the podium and introduce our guests from Ameren, Missouri.
Great, thank you. Good evening, members of the board. With the support of Parkway's Board of Education, we have been able to take great strides in reducing our energy use, making Parkway a more efficient school district. With the support of Ameren, Missouri's Business Efficiency Program, Parkway has been able to accelerate those efforts and achieve some remarkable energy reductions. I'd like to introduce Paige Selby, Ameren, Missouri's Business and Community Relations representative, to present the school board with a pretty impressive token representing the financial incentives that Parkway has received over the years. Paige.
That's a big check.
So real quickly, I just wanted to thank Eric and our business partners. It is my pleasure to present this very large check for your exemplary actions toward making the district more energy efficient and more energy independent. So Parkway has received a total of $1,870,159 from Ameren, Missouri. So those are for projects including installing solar panels in your district buildings, completing lighting replacements, adding vending machine controls, and taking part in energy efficient new construction. So this total includes $420,159 in rebates, or I'm sorry, in cash, as well as $1.45 million in solar rebates. So congratulations to everybody. The district completed 118 Bid Savers projects since 2009, resulting in a savings of 5,632,975 kilowatt hours. So that is a tremendous amount of energy off the grid, and we all thank you for that. So 32 solar projects, and each solar project saved 25.58 kilowatts. So again, thank you all. It's my pleasure to present this.
Right here, give it to us.
Looks like he's going to have a good time, Eric.
We could find cash that somewhere. I have a question. comparatively, how do we compare to other school districts? Do you want maybe want to go to the microphone?
You are setting the bar very high for many other school districts. So it's been wonderful to be able to use the Parkway School District as an example that other schools can follow. So congratulations on that as well. And I also wanted to mention too, I brought some additional information. So if there are other business leaders out there and you're wondering how you can save that same amount of money with your business, then I've got some energy efficiency rebate information for you and then also for individuals in your homes. And I'll leave that on the back table. So, thank you. Okay.
You guys all in? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That'd be great. Thanks for all the support.
And thank you all so much for your continued support for this effort.
Thank you. We're gonna stay on there. No, stay here. Stay here and stay. What's that? How many pages again? She brought a binder. What? When I saw you pull out the binder, I got a little concerned.
Why? They're making fun of me. Because I have a binder and I have lots of pages. But it's big font. When I have to for work, I have one of those on the podium for whoever is doing the event. I get in trouble. Absolutely.
Rules of character.
Dr. Watson.
Okay.
Dr. Watson is our superintendent of character, and I'm the character, you're the
Yeah, let's clarify that, right? All right. Let's make sure we're all good. Okay. So good evening, President Jacob, and wherever we have our Vice President Mogerman, maybe she's watching. Members of the board, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Peasold. It's with great pleasure that I stand here before you this evening to honor and recognize two of Parkway's schools that have received the recognition as Missouri Schools of Character. As you all know, in Parkway, we define character education as the intentional effort to develop in young people core ethical and performance values that are widely affirmed across all cultures, and those adults embrace their critical role as role models. Students in the schools that have been identified as Missouri Schools of Character feel safe, respected, and connected to those around them, allowing them to thrive academically and socially and be motivated to give back to their communities. We all know our friend, Dr. Marvin Verkowitz, and I've said this before. Marvin often says that character education is rocket science. So this evening, I have the pleasure of presenting to you two schools that understand and are intentional as we guide our students in developing their character. And I also want to note that this year, 66 schools from 16 states have been recognized as state schools of character, and the Parkway School District has 2 of those schools. We should be very proud. First, Barrett's Elementary School. Barrett's core values are be responsible, be respectful, and be safe. Barrett's also focuses on the 7 habits of highly effective people. The habits guide students to better understand and live according to their core values. The goal at Barrett's is to teach and empower students to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Establish strong values and inspire future leaders. At Barrett's, every student has a school-wide leadership role based on their personal interest. Students value their leadership as they immediately take initiative and begin enacting goals and plans for their leadership teams, as evidenced by posters they create, emails to staff, and through conversations. Staff at Barrett's intentionally integrate the core values and 7 habits into their lessons and class meetings on an ongoing basis. Students can share how they are modeling and or using those values or habits in their work at any time and all the time. In maintaining the home-school collaboration, Barrett's weekly parent newsletter promotes the core values and provides families with new ideas on how to incorporate these values at home. Another practice at Barrett's is their service learning. Each year, 100% of the students are engaged in at least one service learning project based on academic and social classroom goals. Every grade level performs a service learning project, which allows the students to act on their core values and make a positive impact on their community. Examples of this include performances at local retirement homes, collecting supplies for homeless animals, raising money to purchase books for an underfunded neighboring school, and collecting shoes for the Shoeman Water Project to help other parts of the world have clean water. During the journey of learning more about the importance of character education in a school community, the adults at Barrett's now think a little differently about their work and continue to evaluate systems and structures. Because of a shared leadership philosophy, character education now is throughout the climate and culture of Barrett's. Administrators are eager to welcome new ideas, like recently transforming the entire structure of the student leadership team to provide all students a school-wide leadership role. The staff collaborates to create songs based on the values which are taught to all students. Staff members are also intentional and deliberate in recognizing and complimenting students and classes who model the virtues. Parents, they work to secure grants and resources to support learning around character education. They organize special events at school and provide recommendations to enhance the work around character education. I would like to share with you in conclusion a few voices from the school community. One of their teachers said, "It has been a pleasure to take part in and witness the student body being willing and eager to be responsible for their character and academics at Barrett's. In 3rd grade, students track their own data and can articulate why they're doing so." A member of the office staff said, "As a part of the non-teaching staff, I had the opportunity to present at a National Leader in Me symposium on how non-classroom teachers and support staff utilize the 7 habits with students and staff. I created tardy slips featuring the 7 habits to reinforce the students' responsibility to be on time. I work with students creating music videos showcasing the 7 habits, as well as aspiring the student authors creating a book about our school mascot and therapy dog." A parent at Barrett's said, "Barrett's is more than a community. It is a family. I know my children are not only supported and cared for, but they are also challenged and pushed to be better people. The students and staff at Barrett's are truly a family." Please join me in recognizing Barrett's Elementary as a Missouri School of Character. Tonight, Principal Dr. Kelly Morton and Assistant Principal Jen Deacon-Butchek, I wrote this in, Bridget Zimmerman, music teacher, cheerleader, and master editor, Bob the Bobcat, and members of the Barrett's community are here with us this evening. Will the Barrett's team please come forward to be recognized?
Excellent work. Present this to you. This is recognition. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. How you doing? Congratulations. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Pleasure. Thanks for coming. Good job. Good evening. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all your work. Thank you for what you said down there.
It's good for our torn MCL.
She's got an injury too.
Let me go ahead. Our second school to be recognized this evening is Craig Elementary School. The goal of Craig's character work is to empower students to see how character impacts every part of their world. Craig's core values are respectful, responsible, integrity, empathetic, and caring. Craig's core values are integrated into all aspects of the school community. Students are taught what the core values look like and sound like in each area of the school building. The values are taught and modeled during school assemblies, class meetings, and discussions about characters and stories. In addition, throughout all grade levels, students reflect, and appreciate the character of past and present heroes, famous Missourians, and government officials. Students reflect on how each individual demonstrated the Craig core values throughout their life and express their thoughts through reading, writing, presentations, or other forms. Each week, students at Craig and staff are involved in class meetings. The meetings are built into the master schedule, and they allow for the opportunities for all learners to have their voices heard. Class meetings are used to discuss problems and brainstorm solutions. For example, the third graders were struggling to line up respectfully after recess. Therefore, the classroom teachers held a class meeting to brainstorm causes and solutions. This provided the opportunity for students to take ownership and be part of the problem solving. Oh, thank you. I don't think I did that. The work of character education always starts with the adults. The adults pride themselves at Craig on being an ethical learning community that works together to model respectful and supportive behavior. The staff understands that they must create a strong foundation for the community. With this responsibility comes ongoing development focusing on character education and the impact it has on student achievement. And the folks at Craig have certainly been engaged in learning from national and local experts. In conclusion, I would like to share a few testimonies from staff at Craig. A certified teacher said, "Every staff member at Craig is involved daily with character education. Staff gave input into the selection of our core values, which are used throughout the building. Core value connections are given to students as well as staff for random acts of kindness. We all work together to ensure the success of all students and to prepare them for the future." A student said, "I can't imagine leaving Craig this summer. There's something about this place that's so different from other schools. The teachers and principals seem like they really want to be here and spend time with us. The school has a sense of welcome and joy. Craig uses a thing called Craig Core Values. They are caring, empathetic, integrity, responsible, and respectful. We use these all the time on a daily basis. They are guiding things that we should try so we can be our best." A parent said, "Craig School has a welcoming learning environment, conducive for all students. The student population is very diverse, consisting of different cultures and socioeconomic backgrounds. Because students learn the character traits, respect, responsibility, integrity, caring, and empathy, they coexist peacefully. I observed students cheering one another on in a supportive way rather than competing with one another. This creates a fun learning environment for all, and this is why my children love going to school." Please join me in recognizing Craig Elementary, Principal Bill Senti, Assistant Principal Baron Waller, otherwise known as Mr. Map Hawk and Mr. Map Stash, and Megan Gerberding, Craig's Character Council facilitators. Also, we have with us this evening members of the community, partners at Craig Elementary School. Jerry McQueen from the Creve Coeur Fire Department has joined us, along with Judy Koyman with Operation Food Search. We also have parents, students, and other members of the Craig community. Will the team please come forward?
You like Craig? How you doing? Thank you. Congratulations. Thanks for coming. You guys did such a great job. Thanks for coming. Well, thank you so much. How you doing? How's your going?
This way, we should have
Come on, get you. Oh, thank you. Congratulations.
like they do in basketball.
It's an easy partnership. Congratulations.
So Barry, I almost put the picture of the two of you up there.
Appreciate you coming, man.
There we go.
Here you go. Our little certificate. Well job, well done. Congratulations. Well, we'll do it.
I sort of do it more than myself.
I think that's
really,
it. No, what? That's it. That's
Okay, sorry.
We certainly want to thank everyone again. I want to begin by thanking Ameren, Missouri, and Eric. This isn't the only thing that Eric does, but it's such a wonderful accomplishment, and you don't realize it, the solar panels that are on top of each building, the work that went into that, and it just slowly but every day accumulates and keeps, and you see how it adds up there to the 1.8 million. Just a marvelous effort with the lights and everything else that he's done. And not only has he put more efficient lights in, but they even light up better. So we thank you so much for that. And he has a lot of other work that he does in purchasing as well. And we're just so proud of our 2 additional schools, Oak Brook and Barrett's. We're proud of. Just wanted to see if you were listening. Both of these schools have deserve so much attention and appreciation from parents and students. It's when you think of character, some might think, well, why do we care about that? Well, we care about the whole person, the whole student, and we don't want them just to be good at math and writing and those kinds of things, but we want them to be good citizens and good members of their families. And I think what they learn there at these schools really shows up not just at school but other places too. So thank you for that kind of work and for becoming those kind of schools in Parkway. And before we finish, there's just one other thing that some of us participated in today. There were a couple of events that took place that are special in Parkway, some recognitions, and I'd like Dr. Marty to at least begin that, and he may turn it over to somebody else, but I would like you to be aware of special recognitions that happened this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Chris. We had the opportunity today, several of us, Chris, myself, Desi Kirchhoffer, and members of two schools who were surprised today with the naming of two St. Louis Region Principals of the Year, Assistant Principal of the Year and a Principal of the Year. Dr. Beth Middendorf was surprised today, and a party of several of her colleagues plus guests from other districts came to West Library, and she walked into this large gathering and was announced that she's the high school assistant principal of the year. And she was very surprised, and we were honored to have her. And then from there, we went over to West Middle School. We got everybody in the gym, amazingly, and Dr. Miller, Annie Miller, was taken away, I think a little plot, right, Desi, by the SRO, taking her off campus and then brought into the gym. She walked into a gym full, and again, the same delegation and a number of us, and she was named, Dr. Miller was named the St. Louis Region middle school principal of the year. I'm sorry, middle school principal of the year. Both of these naming was by the Missouri Association of Secondary School Administrators, which oversees the administrators, or is the Association for Middle and High School Administrators. So both Annie Miller, Dr. Middendorf were honored today, and it was a delight to recognize them. I should say that we also had the St. Louis Region Elementary Principal of the Year, and I had the pleasure of being down at Tentera a couple weeks ago to honor Dr. Lisa Luna. And so we've been pretty blessed this year to have wonderful recognition of our elementary and middle and high school principals. So, Desi, did you want to add anything? Do you have any? That was wonderful. Did I complete everything? But Dr. Kirchhofer works very closely with our principals, and I know, Chris, we had a great time. It was a wonderful opportunity to be out in the schools and sharing that wonderful announcement. I believe, and I know Dr. Kirchhofer shares with me, leadership of our schools, and you see it again tonight, certainly principals with strong skills and their ability to work with their staffs and motivate the students and the staff and their community and rally them is so key, and we're really blessed in Parkway to have that kind of leadership in nearly all our schools, and it's nice to be able to recognize those leaders.
Just thought you might enjoy knowing that, so thank you, Dr. Marty. We thank you for joining us for this part of our board meeting tonight. We're honored that you could be here with us for these recognitions. And at this time, we'll take a brief break, and then we'll be back shortly. Thank you. Yeah, a deep break.
sit down and look up there, it says trust. Get that. Oh, maybe.
I changed my plan A to plan B. And when I drop the microphone and say, "We out of here," that'll be the board members that I are so that. They'll drill no questions. I'll just walk the table. Thank you. Lisa gets to close and then she has questions. Just give the microphone to me, please. Boom. I mean, Desi, that's got his bait. Mentality. Middle school child is right there. Sorry. I feel like I'm in. Trying to give you what it feels like to be a middle school teacher. I'm sorry, what? Squirrel?
John this afternoon said he wouldn't teach middle school. You couldn't pay him enough. And he was there 11 years.
That was his career.
Okay, I don't know where he'll show up, will he?
Getting coffee?
Will, get him back here.
We'll call the meeting back to order. 6.0, additions, corrections, and modifications to the agenda. 6.01, deletion of agenda item 11.25. This is the approval of requests for professional services lunch trays. 6.02, addition to the agenda, item 11.03, approval of personnel items. And 6.03, update to agenda, item 11.3, approval of personnel items. 7.0, citizen statements. There are none. I feel like Liz. 8.0, approval of the agenda. I'm asking for a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of Education scheduled for April 6, 2016. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Resolutions, there are none. Communications, calendar of meetings. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April 20th, 2016 at 7 p.m. at Central Middle School with an anticipated closed session at 6 p.m. 10.02, board candidates. Every year we have an election. There's either 2 or 3 seats that are open either for the re-election of board members or for new candidates. And just this, I guess it was yesterday, wasn't it? The terms of Tom Applebaum and Sam Sorrentino were to expire. The Board of Education election was held yesterday. Those of you who went to vote recognize that it was a little more cumbersome than usual because it was totally manual this time. And the preliminary results, and I say preliminary only because they haven't been certified, but they're pretty well what they are, show that Dr. Sam Sorrentino and Sudhir Rathoid are the successful candidates for the 2 open positions for the Board of Education. We congratulate both you, Sam, and Sudhir, and thank you for your commitment to Parkway School District and your willingness to serve on the Board of Education. And I must say that we also thank Tom Applebaum, who has served 6 years the Parkway and the Parkway Board of Education. His great legal mind has helped us on many occasions, and he's been a great friend and colleague to work with here on the board. Those of you who may not know Sudhir, could you go ahead and stand? He'll be sworn in here in a couple of weeks to the board. And I know you don't really know what you've gotten yourself into, but I think with your commitment, you'll do just fine. Board liaison reports. Are there any that the board would like to, any meetings or things that you went to you'd like to share with the board? Probably not much. Everybody want to talk about spring break?
I did actually go to an event. It was the USGBC Growing Green Awards. Not to beat a dead horse, but we had 4 schools that were Energy Star certified. So it was another proud moment for Parkway in the area of sustainability. And as you can see, it pays off sometimes in a really big check.
That was impressive. Anyone else? Okay. 10.04 board subcommittee reports. I don't know if we had one, did we? No, we rescheduled that one. Upcoming subcommittee meetings, student services will be meeting on April 12th at 3:30 p.m. at ISC. And 11.0 action items. May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented here in the April 6, 2016 board materials?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there anything to be pulled to action or closed? I know there's at least one item.
Agenda item 11.26, please.
Okay. May I have a motion and a second to approve all of the consent items except 11.26?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And there are no opposed. That motion carries 6-0. So 11.26, I think Lisa Meredith, our superintendent of TLA, we just thought it'd be good for many of you to know a little bit more about this. It's not that we have so many questions, but that it's a great endeavor that we're trying to get started in Parkway. Lisa.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about our participation in the Lead Hire Initiative. This is work that centers around our district goal number 1 about achievement for all. And as you know, over the past couple of years, the administrators throughout the district, building level and district administrators, have really been working and focused on excellence through equity. The Lead Hire Initiative is a national effort spearheaded by the nonprofit Equal Opportunity Schools. It has support from the White House's My Brother's Keeper Alliance, the U.S. Department of Education, the International Baccalaureate, and the College Board. It is also backed by generous contributions from the Jack Kent Koch Foundation, Tableau, and Google. The Lead Hire Initiative seeks to enable secondary schools to fully reflect their racial and economic diversity at the highest academic levels. So we know that we have rigorous academic opportunities for students, but we know not all students believe that they are capable or choose to enroll in them. So this program is to help us identify students, encourage them to enroll in advanced placement courses, and then for us to learn more about systems and structures that we can put in place to ensure that they are successful. This is a year-long partnership. EOS, or Equal Opportunity Schools, will support each of our high schools by providing field-leading data analysis to measure student and school-specific causes of participation gaps. They'll help us develop a comprehensive strategy for addressing those causes, and by the fall of 2017, we should transition to where we have better representation and success within our advanced placement classes. So the process is a 3-step process. We will start with a study, and we will actually kick this off on April 13th with our onboarding meeting from Equal Opportunity Schools, if this is passed this evening. At that time, we will begin our timeline of how we will study. The study will include surveys of the staff and the administrators within each building, and even the district level administrators, about growth mindset beliefs, about structures and systems that are in place. There will be surveys of our students and our teachers, and we will look to identify the causes and the access barriers for our students. The next step will be to strategize. So then each building, with the support of EOS, will develop a strategy for their building of how they will move forward to increase participation. And they will also plan what structures they will put in place to help students be successful. And then we'll begin implementation in the 17-18 school year. So what they will do is they will help us look for individual students who maybe say that they have not been enrolled in AP classes, they didn't feel like they were capable, or they didn't know how to enroll, or no one ever told them that they thought they were good enough to be in one. And then we'll also find students that teachers are like, not quite sure why they haven't enrolled. We'll find students who have GPAs or involvement in school activities that parallel with students who are successful in AP classes. And so the data will help us identify those students, and then they will receive individual invitations from somebody within the school to participate, and then we'll learn about what we need to do to help them. So this really is about helping us achieve all. With this also, the lead hire liaison for the state of Missouri, Dr. Belcher, worked with the State Department, Missouri State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and has secured for us a grant that will offset about $8,000 of this per school, so in the proposal that you saw this evening. We will be one of 250 high schools from around the country. So we'll actually have 4 of those 250 high schools around the country who were selected to participate in this. So we're pretty excited about the opportunity. It's an opportunity to bring together a lot of initiatives that we've been working on through the past couple of years. So DIA will be tied to this, PAMI will be tied to this, so we'll reach out to those initiatives or those support systems within our organization to help us improve our support systems as well. So really excited about the opportunity.
About how many students might there be in each high school that would participate in this?
You know, I don't have the data packet in front of me, but I can get that for you. So through the help of Dr. Tyson and Mr. Beckner, EOS has already identified our gap between our percentage of students from diverse backgrounds that are enrolled in our schools and what percentage are enrolled in AP courses, and they've identified the gap. And for each building, they've identified the number of students additional numbers that we would need to increase and help be successful to close that proportional gap. So it's a different number per building, and I can get that for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other questions?
Do you know what a potential success rate might be and how that might be monitored? Are there other schools in the area here that are participating in this that we have some idea of what the success rate is on this?
So there is not anybody else in the St. Louis area who has participated to this point. Okay. Columbia Public Schools, where Dr. Belcher was former superintendent before he retired, they participated and they shared a great success rate. And it was, whenever you look at, and I don't have those specific numbers, the high school principals, Dr. Marty, Desi, and I, we evaluated that. But not only did they have an increase in percentage of students participating, but the success level of those students. So it was a high success rate. And again, I can get that background information for you. That would be helpful. Okay. Of the 250 schools that will be participating next year, there will be some other schools within the St. Louis area who will be participating, and we will work as a cohort. So we will be sharing strategies. At our onboard meeting on Thursday, we know there will be some leaders from Belleville, Illinois, who will be here for their onboarding as well. And I know that they are talking with some other schools in the area.
I believe as part of the whole program, there is an external evaluation that is like a grant that would be followed.
There is. Part of the MOU that you have to approve this evening talks about a multi-year commitment for them to continue to collect data on the sustainability. The other thing that we're hopeful for with this, Debbie, that we will want Dr. Tyson to help us with is we are hopeful that we can learn from this program that is about AP courses, and then we can apply that to other rigorous opportunities we have where we might have disparity in our enrollment, such as our dual credit or dual enrollment courses, our honors courses. You know, we know that we have disproportionate enrollment in some of our Project Lead the Way classes. So if we can learn about this process, then we are hopeful that we can apply that process to other offerings within our district.
Okay, thank you.
You know, the board has challenged me ever since I was superintendent to close our achievement gap, and we're working at it, but what excites me about this is it's not just about achievement, it's about opportunities. So before you get to achievement, you have to have opportunities for young people. And I'm really excited about this, really excited because I've got to know Dr. Belcher, former superintendent of Columbia, as Lisa mentioned. And by the way, if that name sounds familiar, Dr. Belcher and sports marketing. So this is our second work with Dr. Belcher and some of his leadership. But he tells great stories of what happened in Columbia. And it really is really getting the whole staff, the administration, and teachers and the community really understanding how important it is to get young people to look at their potential. You know, sometimes I believe we in schools take for granted that people are just going to sign up for these things, but there's got to be some encouragement, some systems in place that really get people to take a look at, or take young people to take a look at these opportunities, which lead then to higher achievement, higher success.
There is already, since we started this conversation in the fall, exploring about EOS and the potential for Parkway, I have had conversations with some folks from other districts and have learned some strategies. So some strategies that are a strategy that I've heard at least 2 other districts use, or buildings within districts, is they trained every teacher in their high school in AP strategies. So even if you weren't teaching an AP course, but the strategies that you learn in that, and then if you apply that to your teaching in other courses, that helps prepare students. Related to that, Aaron Crowley and Courtney Yeager have put together a proposal, and we will begin doing some pre-AP training for our teachers, for our middle school and high school teachers, to learn those strategies to be applied in other courses. And they're also working with College Board for us to become a training site for AP teachers so that we can train our teachers without sending them to other parts of our country for 2 weeks or a week for the long training. So this has already initiated some good work in our district, and we are just at the beginning point of implementing, but it's already changed some conversations.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
May I have a motion and a second to approve the consent item 11.26?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries 6-0. Before we leave the consent items, let me just mention one thing that gets buried as you go through a mountain of these. Item 11.05, it references our negotiations, and successful negotiations, I might add, with the nurses union. And I just want to compliment particularly Mimi and her people, and Kathy, and with Amy. I mean, they came together, they improved the language so much more, and I think we ended up with a real nice contract for the next 3 years that is going to be very good. So thank you very much. And I just wanted to recognize we have a good group of our nurses up here who we enjoy. Beck, why don't you stand up just so the rest of us can recognize you?
Dr. Wallen is with them too.
Yes.
Hey, nurses.
And Beth has reminded me that we may have some students that are here observing tonight. Is that correct? Could you, are you, what university are you from?
Can you stand up so we can?
We welcome you here and are glad to have you here, and encourage you in your endeavors as a student and hopefully a teacher one day. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. 13.0 policy review. Tonight there are none. 14.0, we've been looking forward to this for the last 20 months.
Or more.
We're finally here. 14.01, middle school program evaluation. May I call on Desi Kirschhofer, our deputy superintendent.
Been a quick 20 months.
Yeah.
There's been a lot happening. So good evening, President Jacob, distinguished members of the Board of Education, Dr. Marty, and Secretary Peasel. It's a pleasure to set the stage for this evening's presentation regarding the middle school study. While there were many people involved in the study itself and the collection of data and the deep research that occurred over the past 20 months, I would like to acknowledge some of the key leaders involved in the process. Amy Branson, Jason Kosrin, Kevin Beckner, Dr. Randy Eichel, Dr. Aaron Schulte, Dr. Becky Litherland, and then the two folks who pulled together this excellent team and led this work, Dr. Mike Bogus and Dr. Courtney Yeager. Thank you to all of your contributions and being able to present for us tonight, so thank you. So to get to the heart, why do we do program evaluations or these types of studies? The simple answer is to continue to improve and to continue to get better for our students. The studies and evaluations are not necessarily put together to fix things or to address a specific concern that we may have, but to continuously improve things as well as serve as a reminder that we are a dynamic learning organization. I will say, however, this study itself, because of the size and scope, was particularly difficult. It became all things middle school. So they tried to tackle everything that you could do. So I'm going to just tell you right now, we learned a lot, not just about middle school through this process, but about the process itself and what we really can tackle and study and take on as a group. But this team did a tremendous job of leading through such a difficult task. As you know, in 2009, after years and years of middle school models being studied, developed, discussed, presented, an 8-period day schedule was approved by the board that included double comm arts at all grade levels, core teams of 5 teachers, physical education every day, a new 6th grade exploratory class called Future Pathways, and a consistent middle school district course guide. Along with those changes, many other changes have occurred in the district-wide. For example, restructuring in TLA. There's been evolving assessment practices, professional learning communities, later start time for the middle school, as well as many other things over the last 5 years. A major challenge 4 or 5 years ago occurred also when budget reallocations and a need to tighten staffing occurred. Having at times result to split some teams or having to pull content areas off teams, making full implementation of a new schedule difficult at times and difficult to recognize the impact. All that said, coupled with the complexities of adolescent development, middle school is a very happy place to be and place to live for staff and students, as evidenced by many surveys and our listening tour data feedback. Again, this team did a tremendous amount of research and data collection, collaborating with parents, community members, administrators, teachers. They collected data using surveys, focus groups, the Infinite Campus, PARS data, while also studying other program evaluations, including our most recent listening tour results. Needless to say, it was quite an undertaking. Tonight, they're here to collaboratively share some findings, recommendation, and thoughts on future direction. Now, I'd like to turn things over to the leaders of the study, Dr. Mike Bogus and Dr. Courtney Yeager.
Good evening. I just wanted to start out, the historian in me loves a little bit of context. So one of the pieces that we looked at and discovered as we concluded this study were the 1999 guiding model patterns of practice. And I wanted to share these with you because what we found is they're very similar to the work that we've been doing in the last 20 months. And I think what holds true about the things that we found important 15 years ago are still true today, and we're continuing to improve and work through similar issues. We want, as we did in 1999, to continue to have curriculum that is challenging, integrative, and exploratory. We're working on varied teaching and learning approaches. Kevin will talk about assessment and evaluation that promote learning. We want flexible organizational structures, programs and policies that foster health, wellness, and safety, and Erin will be touching on that. And also, Erin, comprehensive guidance and support services. So as we looked at each of our study areas, and I'll just briefly put them up, this is what Desi was talking about with the scope of the project. We wanted to honor all of the things that teachers in our initial focus group wanted to learn about and work through. And so we have 5 different topic areas that kind of turned into 6. Individualization, grading, assessment, feedback, character development, and community. And Erin has a 3B topic, which was also her work in counseling, curriculum and instruction, and then scheduling, structures, and staffing. So we thought that we needed a way to tackle all 5 topic areas, and what we found is in the feedback we gathered from teachers, we had some basic questions that emerged that guided our work. We looked for the best practices in each topic area and how do they challenge our current realities. We wanted to know if the way we currently implement that topic area led us to achieving our mission. And we also wanted to know what aspects are site-based versus district-based, and then what supports and resources are in place for teachers to implement the given topic area.
Good evening. As Jason Kosdrin and I began our study of individualization, we realized that really that's woven into all of our other topic areas as well. But most naturally, it dovetailed with curriculum and instruction. So we started with best practices, and the organization that we will always go to around here is the Association of Middle-Level Educators and the document This We Believe, which really lays out best practices for middle school. From there, we thought, okay, what will we use to assess? What instrument will we use to assess what AMLE says are the best practices for middle school? What we came across was a survey called Schools to Watch, and it is aligned. We really took a good look at and scrutinized the survey to make sure it was aligned not only with This We Believe, but also with our mission, vision, and learning principles, and found that the only area in our mission that was not addressed, or that was addressed that's not in our mission, was advisory, an individual advocate for every student. The areas that Schools to Watch took a look at were the academic excellence in middle schools, developmental responsiveness, social equity, and organizational structures and procedures. It was a self-report, so we talked, or we gave the survey to students and to teachers about those 4 areas. And from there, it really gave us our current reality, which is that second question. And what we focused in on, we really took a good look at, were the areas that were significantly below all the others. We really scored well when it came to community, when it came to quality of teachers and instruction, but it was there were 2 that stood out. And the individualization, and again, the curriculum instruction came together with those problem statements, which really were, oh, that's a laser pointer, that's not right. The first one is, we found that teachers felt that we don't have enough time and support to meet the needs of all learners, to give them a rigorous academic experience. And then that we're also operating in silos, as you see the one in curriculum and instruction. And we're not giving our students the opportunity to solve real-world problems. And when you talk to them, really, and anecdotally, when you say, is what you're doing in English language arts really something that you use in social studies? And while they are writing and they're reading, they don't necessarily see that connection. Even in science and math, they're not seeing those connections, and our teachers confirmed that interdisciplinary work is not happening, and that is absolutely something that is key to middle school. In summary, as an organization, we really believe that our mission is to meet all the needs of all our students, and the teachers were asking for their guidance and help for that, including the time and support to provide and to ensure that all our students are achieving and have the opportunity to meet those rigorous standards. So from there, we came up with our recommendations, and really it revolved around 2 things. One, development for teachers, and it was about the differentiation at Tier 1. So what's happening in that classroom setting that helps meet the needs of all the students? That really dives down into that collaborative learning. So we're already starting that work with Kagan, the training that teachers are getting around that. And then also studying the pros and cons of a push-in, enrichment, or support or that pull-out situation, studying the pros and cons of that. And then the second one is, to study the current use of time during the regular school day to find opportunities and challenges related to the choice and time for remediation and enrichment. And that really came down to including the freedom that kids want to explore their talents and passions. It's that choice piece. And then also the time for remediation and enrichment, both inside and outside the classroom. The third piece for the timing was really the use of advisory to support character ed. It's really that one of the questions about site-based versus district. When you think about advisory, every middle school has advisory. However, they implement it in a different way, and they've carved out time and taken time here and there to provide that opportunity for the students to have that one adult advocate that may not necessarily be attached to a curricular area, but really that students feel confident confiding in, asking advice from, that kind of thing. So that other piece is using time and carving out some time for academic support. So that's really the area, individualization one. Stuff out of your way.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So, as you can see from Amy's piece just on individualization, that also bleeds into other areas around structures and staffing and character ed. So it was really, we kept trying to flesh things out, and then it kept coming back together for the sake of the study and honoring each of the topic areas. So I'm just going to touch on the things around curriculum and instruction. Again, the outlier in the survey that over half of our teachers took, and I think like 5/6 of our students took, was that while there are examples of teams integrating curriculum throughout the district, those interdisciplinary approaches to reinforce those concepts aren't prevalent yet. And this is something that teachers are eager to work on. They do want to realign with one another. And in working with our teacher teams to come up with the recommendations based on their feedback, we do have some ideas of what we want to do moving forward. First of all, teachers are ready to audit and look at revising our curriculum, and we have potentially some new standards coming this April. We're kind of waiting to see what happens with that. And we've also been doing a lot of work to try to vertically align within the core disciplines. Our recommendation is that we look horizontally across the disciplines, including the character ed standards, and strategically make those connections in kind of that stage one overall thematic. We'd like to form a team representative of all schools and grade levels willing to participate in a 2-year commitment to research, learn instructional approaches, and write revised curriculum frameworks during the 16-17 school year. And this includes agreements around integration and flexibility. We'd like to present this to you in May of 2017. Teachers also want development around transfer, rigor relevance, and project and problem-based and inquiry learning. So we're not just continuing to make connections and kind of partner side by side in our curriculum, but we're truly asking kids to solve those real-world relevant problems. So teachers are asking for development in that area. And then, as we mentioned earlier, we do have team time. We're lucky to have team time, and so you may be wondering, isn't this what happens during team time? And over the last few years, as we've also developed ourselves within our core disciplines through our PLCs, our CLTs, that time has come out of team time. But also teams have spent a lot of time looking at individual problem solving around supporting students. And so they don't feel like in the current structures they have a lot of time to really talk about curriculum, and that was kind of the original intent. So we've moved a little bit away from that. We're still doing wonderful things during those team time, and they're all important, but we're going to have to study the use of our time. And Kevin is next to talk about grading, assessment, and feedback.
Well, thank you for the chance to talk about grading, assessment, and feedback in middle school. And we, just like we had other surveys for middle school staff, we did a specific grading and feedback survey and had over 90% of staff participate, which was really incredible, sharing their current practices, sharing what they hope new practices might look like. And overall, the big picture was that we want teachers using grading practices that are consistent. And that was actually from our teachers, the number one thing when we asked them, what would you want to change about grading in middle school? They said, we want more consistency. They also wanted a lot of other things, but that was the primary thing and the main thing that rose up, that they're using best practices and specifically shift those practices so that we can really communicate a student's achievement of course goals and mission-related objectives, which is right in line with our current Project Parkway goals and action steps that we've been working on over the past several years. To accomplish that, 2 recommendations have come out of this work. One, revise our middle school grading system to make sure we're aligning with what we believe about grading and feedback, and then to do that, form a team specifically to work on just that, beginning hopefully next year with a target implementation date beginning in 6th grade and rolling that up for the 2018 school year with 1 grade coming on each additional year. And now character development.
Good evening. I was really excited to be able to present on this specifically at the middle school level. It made me think of something when I was obtaining my graduate degree, something one of my professors said when we were talking about the development of middle school students. And he said, middle school students don't have relationships. Middle school students are their relationships. And that has stuck with me ever since. And I think we do a good job in Parkway of looking at our students, the whole child, thinking about them socially, thinking strategically about how we're going to develop community in each of our middle schools. I think we're intentional and strategic about this. When we looked at character education in our middle schools, we looked at our national organization, character.org, and what they recommend. We also are very lucky to have local resources like Character Plus. We've already been implementing a lot of this work, so we were already doing a lot of surveys. So we have a character and climate survey that we were able to work from. We also have a lot of our middle schools, again, already doing a lot of work in this, and so they had already been surveying their teachers. We had a survey ready to go about how they felt that they were doing with character ed in their schools. So we had a lot of information to go off of from our team. And so our specific recommendations in this area, number 1 was to expand our budgets to include specific money and resources for middle school advisory period. So as you heard Amy talk about already, all 5 of our middle schools have advisory in some form. The research in this area is very strong, that this is something, again, particularly in the middle school students need to have relationships with their teachers. They need to have relationships with other students. And if we don't strategically make those positive relationships, we run the risk, a very high risk, that those will go negative. Advisory is a great structure to help us with that. So we'd like to allocate specific money and resources, potentially even time, to help our middle schools refine what they're doing with advisory. Secondly, we'd like to expand student elective choices to include a leadership or character option. So a big thing in character education, voice and choice for our students. We know middle school students want a little more independence. They're kind of figuring out who they are. We want to continue to intentionally teach this. This would be a direct, intentional way, a class about how to be a leader. It also would foster a student's, if they had an interest in being, like, how do I become a leader? How do I become a better person? That would be direct instruction on how to do that. And I think about that with regard to, how do we teach math? We would never say, well, we just do math problems on the board and we hope they kind of pick up on that. We intentionally teach them how to do math, and I don't think character is any exception to that. And third, we'd like to engage middle school staff in professional development around the topic of restorative practices. So that's something we haven't really touched on yet in this report, but every single of our middle schools has at the very least looked into implementing restorative practices in their school, and some of them are already practicing this every day. And so all of them asked us for, can we at least get more development, and how can we look at that? How can we do that? And that is another strong piece of how are we building community at our middle schools? That's just another strategic, intentional way to do that. Again, the next recommendation, we would like to, and you've heard this before, make more explicit connections between curriculum and character so that we make sure we guarantee character education through more than just social studies, but in everything. And this has the added benefit, and I think it can be such a win-win if we can make these explicit connections. It makes the curriculum itself more relevant to students because then they're using it in their daily life. How does this apply to me? How does this apply to my world? And makes the curriculum more relevant and also gives us another in about how we're going to be intentional about teaching students about being good people. And finally, in the character ed recommendations, we would like to add a fourth C to the mission statement, comparing, compassionate, what have you, so that it reflects the work we're doing in character education. So as you saw, one of our guiding questions in this study was, how does the work we're doing align with our mission? And as we looked at it, we actually found that our mission didn't align with our work. We're doing a whole lot of work in this area. We know that it's something we value. We know that Parkway really cares about making our students good citizens, but we don't feel that it's explicitly stated in our mission statement. And that is something, again, another thing I learned in my graduate studies was you have to practice what you preach, but you also have to preach what you practice. And so that would just sort of catch up the mission statement to what we're doing and what we're working so hard with regard to character ed. The second topic that I was in charge of was counseling. And this came out of some of your questions when we did the initial board report, the pre-report. And while character ed is something that counselors also participate in, I wanted to separate it out because it's not just the job of the counselor, it's the job of everybody. And so there are specific things with counseling. You all ask questions, some of our teachers ask questions, and so our piece of this report was to answer those questions that everyone had. So for this piece of the report, we consulted our national organization, which is the American School Counselor Association, as well as our Missouri State Model Comprehensive Guidance suggestions. So our recommendations in this area are to increase student, teacher, and parent usage of Naviance Family Connections at the middle school level. We've been trying to go out and get to places where parents already are, like parent-teacher conferences, open houses, to give out information about what this is. But what we know is that our counselors have started using it within their curriculum, so we guarantee that students get on it at least once per year, but we feel it needs to be more than that. Their career decisions, their personality inventories, things that they're learning about on this system need to be more comprehensive than just the counselor comes and talks to you one time throughout the year. So the way we think we might be able to do this is get teachers using it, again, those curricular connections, also get parents to understand what's on there and what might be useful for them. Second recommendation is that as the social emotional needs of our students continue to rise, both in frequency and severity, and we're seeing that at every single middle school, we'd like to hire more social workers. We actually have really good ratios of counselor to student in our district, and we are really proud of that. We're very happy with that. Of course, if you want to toss some more counselors our way, that would be great, and we won't say no. But what we have found is that counselors really work in conjunction with social workers, especially when more severe issues arise. And our social work to student ratios are not what our counselor to student ratios are, and in comparison to other districts, they're not what they could be. And so we would recommend that we hire more social workers to help with those issues. And finally, we'd like to continue to facilitate and figure out how we can make it a little maybe more strategic and easier on the counselors to continue the conversation and open dialogue between counselors and other stakeholder groups. So as we looked at what are counselors spending a lot of their time doing, we talked to teachers, we talked to counselors, we talked to parents, and oftentimes the counselor is the one who receives a piece of information that's important for a lot of stakeholders to know. It's important for the teacher to know, the principals to know, for teachers of special school district, teachers of electives, that's what I'm trying to say. And so the counselor is the one who has to communicate all of that information to everybody. And so how can we make that easier on them so that everybody's getting the information that they need to support the student in the best way that they can? So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Mike Bogus.
Good evening. Scheduling, staffing, and structures. that all stakeholders wanted to discuss first, but leaders of the topic areas wanted to ensure that the findings and needs within each of the other areas would drive the topic 5 discussions. In previous topic areas, we learned that in order to ensure individualization and personalization, the scheduling, staffing, and structure should be flexible and blended. To ensure interdisciplinary collaboration, middle school should be structured into teams and provided with time to work on curriculum and plan for real-world problems and problem-based learning. In order to ensure grading, assessment, and feedback, practices are aligned to our grading practices and beliefs. Teachers need time to collaborate within CLTs and across disciplinary teams. In order to ensure character education, that it's infused, there should be an advisory time as well as integration in all curricular areas. So, outside of our guaranteed team time, our current scheduling practices do not support integrated disciplines, nor does it offer flexibility for student enrichment and remediation outside of the regular class time. Our middle school schedule should allow students time to pursue a personal direction based on an understanding of their talents and interests. A teacher work team representing staff from all 5 middle schools came together on December 14th and again on January 11th to gauge current reality and examine schedules from 13 area middle schools. Between those 2 meetings, a Google survey was given to all middle school teachers in Parkway to gather prospective top 3 priorities to support all students in their learning. District coordinators were engaged in feedback, and that was collected on December 17th, as well as middle school principal feedback on February 11th. As a result of our last 20 months, we recommend that a study team consisting of staff and administration, including Phil Roguski from Human Resources, consider alternatives to our current schedule. This schedule should honor the recommendations you heard this evening in all 5 topic areas, including time to implement curriculum, including differentiation at the Tier 1 level, student choice, including opportunities for students to pursue a personal direction in their learning, time for remediation and enrichment, use of advisory groups and time, and a commitment to team time for interdisciplinary possibilities. We anticipate a final product by the October 2016.
Thank you, Dr. Boggess. So in closing, as you can see, this incredible team, along with their colleagues who are not able to be here, have done incredible work. In the 5 topics, they've come to us with 17 recommendations. So what is next? As we begin to look at Project Parkway 2.0, you can see that the 17 recommendations are tightly aligned to our existing goals. So it will be our work to ensure that these recommendations are embedded into the strategies and action steps so that we are held accountable to continuing to make our very, very strong middle school program even stronger. So with that, questions for this incredible team, and I would really like to recognize them for their incredible work.
Open it up to the board members who might have questions for any of these wonderful individuals.
Erin, I guess this is for you about the advisory. Can you give us a description of what your vision of that would look like?
So when I was looking at best practices within advisory, and our middle schools are really doing, they range from every single day for a certain amount of time to probably once a month at minimum. Some are doing twice a month or late start days, things like that. I think that, like many things that we do in Parkway, the research I found was figure out what works for your school and your environment. And so I don't know that I would make a mandate of like, we need to do it, every day for this amount of time. And I also just don't think that that's how we operate within anything we do with character ed. I think it should be a school decision because that's the best way to get some buy-in. And so I think it would it would look like working with principals and schools leaders they currently each have advisory lead teams. And so, looking at who's leading the work and then what does that school want and envision. And then with regard to like curriculum or budget, there are curriculums out there like, Chelsea and I just had a meeting with Leader and Me. There's a curriculum at the middle school level, so that could be a choice. There's through the Center for Character and Citizenship, they send me all kinds of like curriculum resources that you could be using during that time. So I think just what fits for each middle school, and like so many things, I think it would have to be, the buy-in would have to come from them via, we chose this. This is what we want for our school.
So more of an organic process than a dictated. So,
Right.
but what is, I guess my question is, what is it? Is it a homeroom? Is it a, this is your lead adult that you come to with a problem outside of your classwork? I mean,
Yeah,
I guess I
that's a
just
great
don't
question.
understand.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So ideally, it is a multi-age, and it's time, like let's just say they're meeting every day. The same group of kids meets with the same teacher every day, and it's a couple 6th graders, couple 7th graders, couple 8th graders. The 8th graders act as mentors for the other 2 ages, so then you have, again, those leadership skills for them, and then the mentees learn how to be and how to act, and then they take on that role as they go up. And it can be anything, and as I was looking through like best practices, it can vary from, let's talk about academics, and let's have, we have this member of our advisory community who's really struggling with math, but we have this 8th grader who's really good at math, so let's pair them up. We're gonna have an academic day in advisory, and we're gonna work on this together, because it's about caring for each other. But it can also be like team building. We're gonna get to know each other, and we're gonna learn how to treat each other with respect, treat each other well. They can do projects together connected with that of like, this is how we're building a team. I know that a few of the middle schools at least do school-wide projects, but then each advisory has something to present within that project. So again, just community building all the way through. We're gonna think about academics in this situation.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there specific objectives for what advisory should achieve? In other words, should we know what the end result is in terms of what we want to accomplish for students, and then schools would have kind of a pathway that they need to develop to get there?
I would say, in my mind, and then with regard to character education, the main objective is that students and teachers are building relationships with each other, positive relationships. So it's, again, just putting students in situations where we are intentionally creating positive relationships among them. And then also, like, we know you as a person. This is a place you can come when you are feeling down. This is a place you could come when we want to celebrate something. And you matter as an individual, because everybody in this group, like, everybody knows who you are and everybody cares about you. This staff member cares about you. You know a little bit about me. I know a little bit about you. And so to me, and this is my opinion, but the main objective of advisory is to build those relationships so that students know that they matter.
Mm-hmm. Well, how long does it take to accomplish that?
Well, I think that's ongoing, as things come up.
That's right, yeah. So should that be the main function of an advisory?
To continue to foster those relationships.
But it seems like a lot of the activities that have other results could be incorporated in that while you're maintaining and developing relationships.
Yeah, I think you could use that time for everything, for anything. Like I said, you could do academics, you could do just, this is the place where we feel comfortable, or if you need something or you want to express something, this is the place where we could talk about those issues and do that. And so I think it's serves as a structure that we have in place, that we are intentionally creating these relationships, and we have this safe place for kids every day.
How about guidance activities in the classroom, where counselors go in and talk about character values or character traits or whatever?
Yeah, so that's happening a bit. With our curriculum, though, our counselors really 6th grade, And I guess our counseling curriculum, we've taken a little bit more of a responsive approach for those things. If there's an issue, the counselor gets involved. But our intentional curriculum is actually a little bit more about careers, about learning styles, about student strengths. And so it's not as much of relational issues as I think we would like. But what we found in the past couple of years and in our study is that our counselors and our teachers do not have time to give up their class for the counselor to come in and, hey, I'm going to do this, proactive lesson. And so that's why I think advisory is a really nice thing. The other added benefit of that is that when it is the counselor coming in and doing that lesson, well, then I think sometimes the teachers look at it like, oh, that's a counseling thing. I don't need to do that. And when really you think about building relationships and teaching kids to be good people, that's everybody. That's all of us. And if we think about why we got into education, that's probably the reason most of us are here.
Sure.
Do counselors sit in on team time very often? And how about special ed teachers and other specialists?
With the counselors, I know that they sit in on grade level meetings and they sit in on every single IEP. So that connects. I don't know the answer to that team time with the special educators. But I think when they can, when they're not otherwise tied up with whatever student issues are happening, then yes, they do.
Yeah.
So I can speak for most of the middle schools. Each week, the assistant principal and counselor go into team time to discuss student needs. SSD teachers join, and we get coverage for them. Sometimes those schedules don't overlap when the team time is there, when the SSD teacher is free. But that is a weekly basis here at Central Middle, and I know at the other middle schools. That's
I know time is a factor, and getting people together at one time is not an easy task. But
another example from a previous question, one of the hopes when it comes to advisory for us is to eventually have character counsel where students will go into each family group and teach the lesson to other students. And so our counselors here at Central Middle and other places have advisory groups, but eventually we want it to be student-led discussions by the character counsel.
That's great. Thanks.
I'm not sure if this is for Aaron, but we have the transition of students from 5th grade into middle school, especially those that have IEPs and 504s. And of course, the same thing happens when they leave middle school and go to high school. And I'm just wondering how that works so that, I read in there that you want the staff to read Where Everyone Belongs. And I'm just wondering, I'm not sure what that book teaches them or what would be the outcome of that. Is that enough? Seems like, and I'm not sure what you meant by staff, if you meant teachers.
Okay.
Because it seems like every teacher should be trained in IEPs. Now, every class has got at least one, if not more, of those kinds of students. And
absolutely. So I'll clarify. With the transition, we try our best to get a counselor from 5th and 6th, thank you, and 8th and 9th at every IEP and 504 meeting because those happen annually. I would say most of the time that happens if they're barring, a crisis of some sort where they can't reschedule it. Where Everyone Belongs is actually, if you're familiar with Link Crew at the high school, we have West and South High participate in Link Crew, and it's again a strategic, intentional. This is we're building relationships. We're transitioning our 8th graders to become 9th graders, so they go up, they do a visit. They have a Link Crew leader who has about 5 8th graders who they shepherd through that first year. They have all kinds of events, transition events throughout the year. Where Everyone Belongs is actually the middle school version of that, is getting kids from 5th to 6th grade. So we have not implemented it yet, but we have, I believe, 3 of our middle schools that will go to be trained in this year-long transition process for our 5th graders to becoming 6th graders, so that when they, upon arrival, here's our strategic plan for transitioning you, and we're not just talking about one orientation day, we're talking about events throughout the year. They're gonna help you as a 6th grader in our school be a part of our community. And they'll be paired with a mentor, I assume an 8th grade mentor who applied for that position, that leadership role, and really wants to welcome the 6th graders.
You know, I like the idea that with our principal meetings, that it's not just high school, it's all the principals, so you kind of have this feeling of transition. How well do you feel our elementary curriculum aligns to the middle school and middle school then for students going into high school?
With our counseling curriculum, or?
Just in general.
In general?
I mean, are the students?
I don't know that that's me.
All right, pass the baton.
Yeah. I'll pass that, but I can't.
We've been really excited the last couple of years to work on that from a ELA and perspective. I'll speak to first a K-8 alignment and really helping our middle school teachers be more confident in their reading and writing workshop format, and we've gone to elementary schools a lot to learn from them, to watch from them, as well as getting firsthand training ourselves. And we've also been working with the high schools on vertical teaming and articulation. I think the opportunity that we might see with the new standards coming in April 2016 is to continue that. Like I said, we are doing work 6-12, but also that K-8 strategic vertical alignment with our partners and our elementary coordinators, and our teachers really love. They love going to see other teachers in like buildings across middle schools, but they are begging for more time to go into elementary and high and watch instruction and get a feel for what their students experience. And I think it's one of the most powerful professional development things that we can do. And we do take all year 2 teachers on learning walks. And I know that's part of our work that we've talked about as K-12 curriculum coordinators, is getting them into the various levels so they can see firsthand the connections and ensure that the rigor is high enough in middle school based on what we're seeing in 5th grade. We're always blown away by what 5th graders can do when we go visit, and I think the same is true when high school teachers come to visit middle school. They say, oh my gosh, I had no idea they were doing that in 7th or 8th grade. So to continue to develop those aha moments is really, really important and get people outside of our own context.
Great, thank you. By the way, how many social workers do we have in middle school? This is Erin's show.
Come back. I believe we have 5, but it is done by either area, geographic area, or we have a couple of social workers that they also have like a specialization. So some of our students in transition, that's their added focus. Some are ESOL families, trying to think of the other specialties.
Okay.
I think that came to light when I think Rockwood recently just employed like 5 or 6 more, and then we did some comparisons, and it's very true. Chelsea's correct. That's one area of staffing where we are not favorable comparatively.
So, example, at Central Middle, we get our social workers.
Talk to Mike.
Yeah, talk to Mike.
Yeah, because those that are...
Get to the mic, Mike.
The five...
She's in San Diego.
And the other 5,000...
Most middle schools only get their social worker 1 day a week, unless there's an emergency and they're needed to come over because they're shared. So at Central Middle, we get our social worker on Friday, and if needed throughout an emergency, if it comes up Monday through Thursday.
Could I call Kevin to the mic?
Erin would love you to call Kevin.
Yeah, I'll defer. Whatever Erin says.
My question for Kevin is one that I don't think I'm going to catch him off guard here, but you know we've changed grading assessment reporting at elementary. So isn't just a natural that that the parents, as they now have middle school children, are going to say, wait, what's happened here? We've had this new system. So
yeah, it's certainly a question that we got frequently from, as we went around to every elementary school and talked with PTOs at every elementary school in the district about that transition over the last couple of years. And probably one of the most frequent questions we got is, what does this mean for middle school? Mm-hmm. And what's going to be happening at middle school? And up until now, my answer has been, we have a middle school study. And that's happening now. And we're really trying to honor the process of there will be recommendations. I can't really answer that right now, but I think everybody has seen it does need to be a smooth transition. We want to, just like we transition our students from 5th to 6th, and then again from 6th from 8th to 9th. We want to make sure that that's a smooth transition, and want to make sure that we're being even consistent so our parents aren't, pulled different directions all the time. So that is a natural evolution of where we're going.
So this consistency is also consistent with what's going on in elementary in terms of growth and, some consistency about what we were really viewing as those key benchmarks and.
Yeah, and
key
we're
assessments.
really leaning on the same beliefs and principles that we built off of in elementary to really try to get clear about what a grade means. What is it that when we say a student has learned at an A level, what does that mean? And when our teachers said consistency is the thing that we want most, a lot of them, in fact, we did that survey and we saw that less than half of our teachers felt that they were being consistent with teachers who also taught the same course. So yeah, we want to get clear on what does it mean to learn at an A level, a B level, a C level, and help that be something that can be clear. When we say you learn at this level, what does that mean? And even handling other things. For example, we know that there's a lot of non-academic things that are really important to life. And right now we give a citizenship grade that the survey results were pretty clear that this is not the most effective way. Really, it's completely unclear what that means. So we want to even get, if we're going to be clear, we probably need to report both. We need to be able to talk about things that are academic. Did they meet the expectations? Have they really mastered what we expect them to master in this course? But also, are they being responsible? Are they being a good teammate? Are they learning to work well with others? Are they doing those non-academic things that we know are so important to being a successful graduate, a successful employee, a successful person outside of school as well?
How in middle school the ELA grading is taking place right now? And are you envisioning that? Because right now what we see is a beginning, developing, proficient, but then there's a grade overall assigned. And sometimes I'm being told those grades don't really fit. We're trying to fit a circle into a square peg or whatever,
Sure.
however that is. And so is that what's going to happen in all of the other core courses as well, or all the other courses as well, or some different type of?
Fair question. Our
format?
recommendation is actually to bring together a team to specifically answer that.
Okay.
So I can't stand here and say, here's exactly what we're going to do, because it's going to be involving our teachers represented from every school, every content area. I can tell you currently what's happening with ELA in middle school is we have 2 schools who had really been moving forward with wanting to communicate more clearly about the different areas in their content rather than summarizing them together, and that's Northeast and Southwest. And at those 2 schools, they've been doing that for the past several years, where they do say, are we really advanced in terms of reading information text? Are we really advanced in our writing? Versus summarizing, maybe reading and writing together, that might be very different. A student might be a really quality reader but still struggling with their writing. So to try to get more clear about that, they've stepped out, and those 2 schools have been doing the same system together where they're not summarizing those into a single letter grade. The other 3 middle schools are still using the traditional letter grade but have been working to incorporate those same kinds of ideas. How do we communicate that there are different things going on while still trying to combine that into a number or a letter at the end? I think that's where a lot of the difficulty has come in, where we've had groups of teachers, and in this case, ELA teachers, and Dr. Yeager has been great to both work with them and give us the opportunity to work together over summers or on their process, where they've been struggling with that. How do we combine, where we have 2 different skills, where the level of learning for the child might be different in those areas? How do we merge them? And I think that's where some of that challenge that you're describing has come in, is, yeah, sometimes it's really difficult when you're saying reading nonfiction, information text, reading literature, writing, speaking and listening, and language. Those would be the 5 areas we're really looking at. Well, yeah, to merge those together, that poses a challenge, especially when you're trying to be clear and give specific feedback. The way that you combine those, that might be part of where you get some inconsistency, because you have to make some decisions about how am I going to weight and combine these different things to try to communicate what's actually happening. So that's, I think, just to give you a sense of what's going on in ELA in middle school, that's the work that they've been doing really for the past probably 4 years or so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I also have a question in somewhere in the text I read, and I can't put my finger right on it now. It talked about the collaborative learning environments and making that available to all students. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Is there a change in philosophy, and is the collaborative learning environment where they're bringing in, there's an SSD teacher perhaps that's teaching and helping the kids with IEPs who need that, and now are they going to be taking that into all of the students within the classroom, or how is that going to be?
I'm going to defer to whoever that would relate to best. Not me.
It's on page 68. 68.
Is it 68?
Sure. So we're talking about the CLTs there, the collaborative learning teams, like the PLC, the school level PLCs.
Okay.
So when we're saying collaborative learning team, we mean the individual CLTs, like a group of 6th grade social studies teachers are a collaborative learning team. And they, oftentimes within the context of that team, they're working on building in days to work together to offer remediation and enrichment, kind of at a tier 1 level.
Okay.
And sometimes that does involve a special educator if there happens to be one on the team that they're currently co-teaching with. But that wasn't specifically in relation to our COTOP model with our special educators.
Okay, all right, thanks.
A lot of acronyms, sorry.
Okay, sorry, Erin.
I was missing being up here, thank you.
So several years ago, several of us went to South County Tech, and we learned about the wonderful programs they had for our high school students. And Dr. Marty and I were talking about it, and we were kind of thinking out loud that in order to participate in some of those classes as a junior and senior, you have to have all of your core courses taken care of and all your requirements really done, so you've got enough elective time when you're a junior and a senior to pursue a passion. So what we were talking about was when 8th graders register for classes in January of their 8th grade year, when they register for high school, I don't understand how much guidance they're given from their middle school, be it a counselor, a teacher, an assistant principal. In my experience as a parent, parents help each other a lot. Parents with older children are able to help guide a little bit people with younger children, but that's not a good system. I mean, that can always be part of it, but who is talking to these kids and these parents and telling them how to structure their learning plans?
Yeah, so the high school counselors come down to the middle schools for a minimum of 2 days. Again, like a lot of things in Parkway, this is done differently at every school. The transition's a little different, but part of the transition is that a minimum of 2 days, you have the high school counselors that come down that present to the middle school students about high school and what that looks like. Some of the schools bring seniors down with them so they can talk to the students, here's what this is. But during those meetings, they fill out what's called a 4-year plan. Some of our schools do a 5-year plan. So like, what is the end game when you're finished with high school? And then how do we get there? I'll say that I do think we can do work on this particular transition. There's so much to tell students and parents, and what we're finding with that is that our high school counselors at that time, like our 8th grade counselor at that time, is juggling, I have these 8th graders, I have all these 5th graders coming in. Same with the high schools, I have all these seniors who are crazy right then too, and they're trying to figure out their next step, and we're trying to help them with that. And then have these incoming 8th graders. So and then for both transitions, there's just so much to tell students and families. So they do that classroom presentation. I would say that they also do an evening for parents. There's the curriculum nights. They generally do a incoming 9th grade presentation where they invite parents in. Like many things, I think it's a tough sell to always get parents to come and listen to that. And to be quite honest, it's not the most riveting information at the time of like, hey, when 3 years from now you could be in this class, and they're looking at you like, I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. So at times that can be a tough, like, hey, this is relevant to you now. And if you want to plan for this then, you need to think about it now. And so we're just, I guess, trying to figure out within our own curriculum, specifically with that presentation, how do we make this relevant to them so that they hear what we're saying? And how do we get even parents on board to think about that long game of, if you need to start thinking now about what you want to do junior and senior year, because when you start taking classes at the high school, like, everything matters. And that's been, to be quite honest, a tough thing for us with the amount of time that takes and the presentation itself.
And I think with that, as we look at choice programs, I know that Dr. Stanfill is working on how do we help our middle school students be more aware of choice programs. So be it South Tech, be it Spark, be it virtual, and as we grow our choice programs. So is that taking our middle school students on some tours? Is it bringing some of the high school students in? And maybe it's before the end of 8th grade when they're making that plan. Maybe it's in 6th grade and 7th grade, so that the students actually see it and get interested. And then I think that brings relevance to that 4 or 5 year plan that Erin just spoke to. So I think part of that is the marketing work that Jennifer and her team are working on with choice programs.
We took all 8th graders to Merrimack Community College, right?
That's right. Yeah. And so that was another thing that we tried to bring in this year, and we intentionally, with the career conference, had very frank conversations with both 8th grade and high school counselors of, this needs to be a part of your presentation. And we, again, strategically planned that event before they chose their classes, so that it was a direct lead, and they had that event in December. You start to choose your courses in January. What does that mean for what did you learn on that day? And the counselors, both middle and high, were bringing that into the conversation. Did you learn a class you don't want to take? Did you learn classes that you do want to take?
To Beth's question, is that something that maybe there should be a 7th grade career conference? 8th grade's kind of at the end, but you might be a little late.
Well, and so we thought
it's
that
a great teaching tool.
we thought that actually made it like just-in-time learning, because what we're also struggling with it is like, hey, we're asking you this question in 8th grade, and they're looking at you again like, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing senior year. Why are you asking me this? You're a crazy person. But so I think that 8th grade, at least we could say to them, you just did this, remember? Like, that just happened. And what did you like? What didn't you like? You got to really think about it. We also intentionally, in that event, added a reflection component. So when they got back to their school, they were asked to write a thank you letter to a presenter, whether that be like, hey, I learned that I am interested in this industry because of you, or hey, I learned that I actually don't like it, but thanks for helping me sort of check that off my list.
And I think that goes back to supportive advisories, and because I think at the moment we're not sure. I mean, you can have all these opportunities, but then how do you connect it? And that's where you have to keep talking about it after the fact. Remind young people what they experienced.
Right.
Because we're talking about middle school. Sam, you know this. Middle school children have not a lot of attention spans, a lot of things going on, and sometimes the maturity ranges from like a 3rd grader to an 18-year-old, and right in the midst of a 7th grade classroom. So it's really a
Yeah.
Incorporating that.
Oh, yeah. So actually, we do kind of connect that to 7th grade. They take the interest inventory. Okay, so the students, I'm not sure how much we've told you about the career conference, but we connected to Naviance in that in the 7th grade counseling curriculum, the counselor goes in, gives them a career inventory. They get results. They answer questions about what they like and don't like, who they are, things that they're good at, and it spits out results of like, here are careers that you might be interested in based on the way that you just answered that. We then take that, the counselor goes over that with the student, and they're doing it like crazy right now of like, hey, it spit out that you have these 3 things that you were interested in. Is that still the case? Are these your top 3? Because they might have more, they might have less. So they choose their top 3 toward the end of their 7th grade year. And then we use that to inform the presenters that we're going to get. So we will have a different crop of presenters this coming year based on the results of that survey. And then we hand schedule every single student into their own strategic interests, what that survey said they're interested in. That is what we schedule them for. So connecting Naviance, connecting their choice and interests and then putting them in front of a real-world person to see, like, is that actually what I wanted to do?
And that could also carry over into their four-year plan.
Exactly.
You know,
That's the hope, yeah.
that basically, you know, it gives them at least a direction that they can review each year and decide, well, you know, my electives were more in the science category, but now it's the humanities or something. But the fact that they do a four-year plan, I think, is really important, particularly as it follows through with the Naviance program.
Right.
And the career ed program.
Right.
I wanted to ask about leadership in me, and basically, Dr. Marty and Chris and I attended the leadership day at Belle Reve, which was absolutely fascinating. Students led the entire thing. Then we met with students in the classroom, and they all knew the 7 habits, and they all knew basically so much about leadership and how their curriculum, their program, and how they basically map out what they're doing, how they're achieving, et cetera. I mean, it was tremendously organized. Walking around the school, I mean, character ed leadership is everywhere. So what is the carryover to the middle school? I don't think we want to lose any of what we have in the elementary schools, and I think all the schools are in some type of leadership program, whether it's leadership, Leader in Me, or some other type. But what is the carryover in middle school? And maybe that needs to be one of the recommendations, to be sure that that's accomplished.
Sure. So to specifically talk about Leader in Me, right now, none of our middle schools, there is, like I said, a middle school curriculum. None of them are engaging in that. West Middle has signed on to do that next year. So we'll see how that goes. That particular program, it comes with a pretty large price tag. And I personally, you know, in my study of different curriculums, et cetera, I think a strong base of a general character education knowledge, which is really, our middle schools actually are doing a really great job of, you know, making sure, again, intentionally building community, having advisory, I'm trying to think of all the other wonderful things you guys are doing. Having a really comprehensive transition program in and out. They have the base, and so I think they are ahead of the game if they do decide that they wanted to bring in Leader in Me as a formal curriculum. But I don't think it's always completely necessary. I think they're, you know, doing a pretty good job of that carryover, and again, intentionally creating community with things like advisory, with things like all of them. They're the only level of schools that each have a set of core values, and they were the first to jump on board with that, and so I think that's a pretty cool thing. So I would say I think they're continuing it. May not be through the 7 habits, but I actually do think that is something that our middle schools are doing really well.
Well, I think it's important that there's carryover, because, I mean, it's fascinating what these kids are doing and what they're experiencing, and they need to see it happening as they continue into 6th grade on up, and even from 8th to 9th grade.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a growth process and becomes more sophisticated in terms of leadership roles and responsibilities and characteristics, but that's my viewpoint.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Any other questions for Aaron?
Do you see me now? I'm not moving.
All right, well, thank you so much. A great amount of work, and we know that it's really just beginning, but it's going to help focus what you do there at the middle school. So thank you again very much. 14.02.
Thank you.
Patty Bedborough will be talking to us about finance and resource allocation.
Good evening, President Jacob, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Marty, Ms. Piesold. I am not only here by myself to present on Goal 6, I have majority of my directors also here to present. We do have Jason that is at the COSIN conference in Washington, D.C., so he is sorry that he is not part of this team to present, but he did help with the preparation of it. I just want to share a few thoughts in general first on Goal 6, and part of my passion. When I started looking into Parkway and studying up on Parkway, researching for my interviews, in the job description, it showed that I was in charge of Goal 6 of Project Parkway. So of course, I started to find out what that was. And as I dug deeper into that, I realized that it was all about efficiencies and realizing, financial efficiencies, et cetera. And that truly is one of my passions. So it is so exciting to have a job that actually matches along with my passions. So in the first year, as you know, a lot of the things that were accomplished that I had any doings with also was directly related to the finance department. So of course, Brian Whittle has continued in those efforts, and of course he led most of those efforts too, but we really worked closely together that first year in order to identify some problem areas and attack those. So with that, we'll go into what are the measurable objectives of Goal 6. So we have, number 1, that all programs, schools, departments will maintain fiscally responsible practices to effectively accomplish mission. So pretty complicated wording there. Measurable objective 2, all personnel, time, facility, space will be allocated responsibly and flexibly based on the mission-related needs of students and the financial realities of the district. That one's a little tougher to measure and to do, but it really touches everything we do in Parkway. Measurable objective 3 is more focused in the finance department, and it's looking at our financial practices, having them approved by the auditor, and then ensuring that each year we apply for and attempt to receive the Certificate of Excellence with Financial Reporting from the Association of School Business Officials. And objective number 4 basically covers majority of our capital projects. So all capital improvement projects will be completed successfully and funding will be secured for the future capital projects. So if we go back in history, if we will, just to give a little bit of the accomplishments of the past. So I want to highlight some of those big Goal 6 things that have been done and accomplished in the last 4 years. And then I'll have our directors kind of walk you through some of the accomplishments that have actually been completed this past year. Then we'll go into some of the future objectives that we're working on currently. So, of course, you may remember when we adjusted the school day schedule, so getting bus efficiencies, route efficiencies, elimination of some of the extra routes. We adjusted start times to be consistent throughout the district, and we actually moved some elementary schools into an early start and not having them all begin at that later hour. We also instituted full-day kindergarten for all students, so not just students that registered or filled out lottery, but for all students. You may recall when we did the north area boundary adjustments, as we saw the enrollment climbing in some areas and some schools having space, we adjusted some of those boundary lines in order to more efficiently have students in the buildings. We're looking at that currently, of course, as new subdivisions come online too. So that's not a once and done process. Of course, we lived through the budget reduction process where we had to tackle $14 million in budget decreases. Food service went through a reorganization where we actually reduced one of the production centers and have just the 3 production centers that serve majority of the schools, and then West High actually produces the food for that location only. We had the refunding of the 2009 bond issue that we saved over $3.5 million in interest, and we had our partnership that has begun with Kelly Sports Marketing. We have several wellness initiatives led by Leah Gonzalez, where that has proven to show that our increase in our medical claims have stabilized. And of course, evidence with the Ameren check presentation earlier today are numerous energy efficiencies, including the solar panels and the additional controls on our HVAC that have just proven all of our energy efficiencies. Now, the check that we received was not exactly new money to us. It's money that we have received throughout the years, which I believe she said 1.4 million actually went for the solar panels specifically, and just under $500,000 of that were from other projects, so including the LED lighting and the interior lighting that we are currently undertaking too. Most of that rebate money that we receive through Ameren for those rebates, we actually turn that over and turn that into additional projects that we tackle. But remember, with the Ameren check presentation, she mentioned all of the energy that we've saved. This chart signifies not only the electric, but the gas that we have actually saved too. So you can see as we've installed the solar panels, et cetera, we actually are using less energy. So when we look at measurable objective 3, of course we have our AAA bond rating that we obtained not only in 2012 for the issuance of bonds, but also that was ratified in the fall of 2014 prior to the issuance of our first portion of our issuance for our 2014 bond passage. We have received an unqualified opinion by our auditors, which, believe it or not, that is the best you can receive, even though it doesn't necessarily sound so exciting. And we have successfully received our CAFR for the last several years. We're still awaiting the award for the 2015. When we look at measurable objective 4, as we began Project Parkway years ago, we were still completing the 2008 bond issue. So of course, during this timeline, we have completed all of the projects from 2008, and we have begun the projects that were approved from Facilities 2020. So we had the Facilities 2020 process also that we went through, where we identified all the projects that were going to be completed. Of course, November 2014, we had the general election and the passage. In the spring of 2015, we actually had our first portion of the issuance of bonds. In that time frame, too, we also implemented the Intranier software, which identifies every capital project within the district. So every portion of the roof, every HVAC unit, et cetera, every age of the floor, so that at any point in time, facilities department and the planning department can utilize that and tell us the condition and the age of all of our HVAC units, roofs, et cetera. So up next, Will Rosa, our Director of Transportation, will begin to talk about all the accomplishments that have taken place this current year.
Good evening. So we've had a busy year in transportation, and one of the first things we did, here we go. So one of the first things we did this year, unbeknownst to many people, is we updated our transportation agreement with the special school district, and that allows some synergies where we can share bus routes together. They can take some of our Parkway kids where they haven't done that in the past other than from outside the Parkway district. And so that resulted in the savings of 3 routes, special needs routes. So directly they're saving some money, indirectly Parkway's saving some money for our kids on the special need routes. We also have some special need bus routes that are handling some general ed students, Parkway students, and we're trying to commingle some of the kids together because it's good for kids and it works out for Parkway and the special school district. And that's worked out pretty well this year. And this is our first year we've done that. So far so good. Fuel savings. We continue to have fuel savings. The alternative fuel tax was reauthorized by Congress for 2015. It was in 2014 we saved for the partial year on using the compressed natural gas, I think $36,000. And so for 2015, a full year, it's about $45,000 for using compressed natural gas and applying for a tax credit. 50 cents a DGE, which is a diesel gallon equivalent. So that's a good thing. here's that fuel pricing slide, the diesel versus CNG, and it's kind of small, but that top line is the diesel pricing back to, boy, that goes back to 11, 12, and it was up at about $3, I think, $3.16, and you can see the top line keeps going down. Our last diesel fuel price last week was $1.21. So we haven't seen that. Well, we know gas is low, but diesel, that's as low as we've seen in 10 years, I think, and potentially could go back up. Who knows? And the next line, that red line, the next one down, is the cost of our compressed natural gas, and we've got some pretty favorable pricing through Eric and some consortium, and that's about 75 cents for a diesel gallon equivalent per gallon. And so then if you take that bottom line, that would be adjusted for the fuel tax, so 75, and we're getting 50 cents a diesel gallon equivalent. So really we're paying about a quarter for a diesel gallon equivalent of fuel, which is unbelievably low. Our fleet is 25% CNG, so 25% of our fleet we're paying really effectively a quarter a diesel gallon equivalent. Now, they get a little different gas mileage, but it's still pretty amazing. Okay, so also this year we did a map upgrade, and we haven't changed our map in 15 years. So a lot of the streets we can draw streets in our map, our current software routing planning, and they're not exactly accurate when we draw them in. And the new 141, we didn't draw that in at all, but we could. And so this new map upgrade has all the new streets in there, and it's more accurate. It also has some enhancements because we can change the speed limit on a segment of a street, so we can adjust it so our route timing is more precise. Instead of just saying it's 45 down Ladue or 30 or whatever the speed is, we can adjust it to 20 different segments, and it gets us to our stops on time more efficiently. It also allows, our new software allows a overlay of Google Maps that we couldn't do before, so we can take our routes and we can put them onto a Google map, and I'll show you what that looks like. Gives you a nice visual. And so the map on the left is the Barrett. This is just an example of what it looks like. So we took all the map routes, I think there's 6 at Barrett's Elementary, and we overlaid them onto the Google Earth program. And so you can visually see where all the buses are going, helps us do some routing and make sure we're doing the right things. And then if you zoom down to the route, the picture on the right, that's just one route that we're looking at. And we can say, wow, look at that, there's 20 stops on it. So it helps us with our analysis. And then you can get all the way down to a street level with this Google Earth, so we can say, is a bus stop safe? What does it look like without driving to every bus stop? So it's a quick tool when we're talking to parents and looking for the safest bus stops possible, as you can see in that final map. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Oh, sorry, Marlene.
Okay, so, good evening, how are you tonight? Good. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about our ventless ovens that we're trying to institute in all of our schools. So we have kind of a plan to do 5 a year, provided that we have our gift from you guys every year of $200,000, and we thank you very much for that, to help with our capital improvements. So those ovens.
Thank Eric.
Okay, thanks, Eric. So those ovens do not require vents, which helps us to have like vegetables cooked straight to the line instead of cooking them early in the morning and holding them in an oven and then shipping them out. This way we can slack them out and send them out to that school that has the oven, and they'll actually cook them a few minutes before it goes off to the line of serving. Also, it does reduce 50% or more in hot shots. And if you ask what a hot shot is, that's when they run out of food and they have to call for extra food. So those schools that have those ventless ovens actually will have extra product that they can cook to the line also. So that cuts down on the emissions on our trucks and also time. And best of all, it makes the food a little bit fresher too for the kids. Energy Star refrigerators and freezers. Yes, I do have to thank Eric for that because he's been on my back all the time to make sure that everything that we bid out has that criteria in there. And even if it costs a little bit more, we know that in the long run, it's the best for our environment. Online free and reduced applications. That software excites me the most because it's for the students. Instead of taking anywhere from 5 to 10 days to approve an application because either a parent didn't have the correct information in there, something was missing, an address, social security, sometimes a child that they forgot to add. This way, they go online, they cannot move past that screen until all fields are completed. And then once it's completed, it's 24 hours, that a turnaround time. So I really think that's helpful for our students because they're not waiting, they're not incurring charges that maybe their parents couldn't afford to pay back. So it also helps us in our department to be more efficient. The new inventory system is great too, and I have a new lady who's running it, and she has picked up probably in the last month or two, she just makes that inventory system hum. We can track the food more accurately, and I believe we're a little more accountable for our inventory because it's that easy to use. Finally, partnering with transportation, and that would be Will Rosa and his staff. Sometimes the drivers come in very early, and then there is a break between their morning runs and their afternoon runs. So we have been able to utilize some of their employees to fill in at our kitchens, either as a sub, or that might be their regular place to go in between their runs, provided that we don't go over the 40-hour. You know, we don't want to have overtime. So I just think it's kind of nice to partner together with them. And next is Mike, and he will talk to you about the HVAC system.
Good evening. One of the things that we've done over the last nine months is really expanded the use of our HVAC alarms. So we've always had the ability to alarm critical pieces of equipment. Some of it wasn't done well, but over the last 9 months, we've identified all of our critical chillers, boilers, and critical alarm points. And that alarm then goes to the maintenance supervisor and HVAC lead's phones. And this was not one of our more popular moves initially because at 2 o'clock in the morning when the chiller alarm goes off, you get woken up. The good thing about that, though, is that from an efficiency standpoint, we fixed a lot of problems that we didn't know we had and got things running a lot better. And when the boilers switched over to the wintertime, I asked how many alarms we got. A few. When we were going back to HVAC and going back to the cooling systems, not really anything. So when you're accountable for it and you're getting woke up, it's amazing. You really do get the guys on it and they get it fixed correctly. So it was a good thing for us. And then that just benefits our schools. Reorganization of our maintenance, grounds, and custodial. In our maintenance group, we reduced one of our supervisors, so we now have, instead of 3, we have 2. It's really worked out well for us. I think our day-to-day communication has improved immensely. I'm meeting with all of our groups on a quarterly. I met with carpenters this morning. I met with the HVACs, TC techs yesterday, and I'm meeting with the electricians next week. So I'm also getting a little bit more hands-on with the group and with our new supervisors, but it's going very well. Custodial, we realigned that. Della Turner, who is one of our supervisors, is now our lead. And again, it's helping with our day-to-day communications, as well as just making sure we have consistency with our custodial supervisors and the message we have going out with our custodians. And finally, in our grounds area, that was our largest change. We really sort of changed the whole place up. Went from 3 2-person crews cutting grass to 4 3-person crews cutting grass, increased our grounds group, relocated assets. We no longer have a dedicated concrete crew. Our operations team is picking that up in their group, so that was not increased at all. Took those folks and put them on the grass. Trying to get our athletic fields looking better and trying to get our landscaping and our general appearance at our schools looking better. So that is all rolling out this spring. We added a new crew chief on, so we now have, like I said, 4 crew chiefs for the 4 crews, and we're assigning people to those, and that's all moving forward. We've enhanced our preventive maintenance program immensely over the last 9 months. To give you a little bit of an idea where we were and where we're going, and we'll use Central High as an example for their air conditioning. They have about 25 rooftop units over there. The way we used to do PMs is we had 1 PM for all the rooftops at Central High, and they would go up and write all of what they did on 1 PM. We've now changed that to each unit gets a PM, and instead of writing additional work orders for work, you do everything on that PM. What's happened is we've increased the number of PMs from about 1,000 5,240 over the last 9 months. We're really not making any more work for anyone. But when you're trying to standardize your PM and then use that standard to compare how you're doing against other organizations, that's the right way to do it. So we've gone from about a 10% PM ratio, PM to regular work hours, to right now we're pushing 40, and we anticipate that to go to 50 by next year. And we're really not making any more work for the individuals. It's just a better way of tracking what we're doing, and then we can compare ourselves better against universities and other K through 12s as to how they're doing their PM work. What we have seen is we've seen a reduction in our emergency work orders over the last 5 years from approximately 13% to less than 1. We're at 0.89% right now for emergency work orders, and we expect to see that go down lower. So it's a good story on what we're doing on controlling our maintenance. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric.
Hello again. So yeah, I wanted to touch on our managed print services agreement. With this is a element that our technology department has rolled out, and it's been a great advantage to the district because this is a program that has allowed for greater transparency into the district print behavior. So that includes all the toner, ink, and paper associated with that, as well as the wear and tear on the equipment that we have, as well as even having more visibility for what devices that we have out there. And this program has allowed the technology department to focus more on their core competencies while allowing a specific service contractor to manage our printer fleet throughout the district. This also was able to utilize Parkway's purchasing power and buying power for toner and printer repair parts and service. So in effect, actually driving down the cost and the expense that the district has for the amount of print that we are actually doing throughout the district. And it does actually also tie in with the concept of preventive maintenance for these larger printer devices that we are having those serviced and maintained regularly. The PC Power Management Program is an excellent partnership. We've also worked with technology department to centralize a software platform that turns our desktop devices to standby at a certain time of being inactive. So in essence, it's a built-in occupancy sensor for these desktops. So after a certain amount of activity, it goes to sleep, or after a certain time of day, it goes to sleep. This has been a huge success to roll out. This slide was crafted before, just before spring break. This amount has increased, but right now, so far since rollout, we've looked at saving over $38,000 in electricity costs associated with the implementation. And this is something that Ameren did incentivize for, so the cost to the district to roll us out was virtually negligible. So this is a great program, and we anticipate a lot of good results moving on. So next we have the LED exterior lighting project. This, by all means, was a large task. So we've got a video here for you that we will be displaying. But before, just wanted to give definitely a big kudos and shout out for our district electricians that had a massive undertaking for all the light fixtures in the district. So in a very short amount of time. Sure. So, so working on the audio and technical difficulties, but in essence, this was a massive undertaking that the district underwent in changing over 1,400 different light fixtures across the entire district. This is a YouTube video, so when you get home tonight, because I'm sure you're gonna be wide awake and want to watch something else, we've got a great video here that Will Rosa helped us put together. So he's got his director capabilities in more than just transportation video as well. So this is an excellent project. So we're saving an immense amount of money. There's a control system that allows us to dim these light fixtures late at night when there aren't people on the lots. When people are on the lots, we raise that light level rises up because it has that occupancy level into it. But when it's dim, it's actually saving more money. The district is estimated to save about $130,000 over the course of a year. This is Wren Elementary. This is Southwest Middle. So these are some after still shots. This is South Middle, and then this is going to be maybe not videos. So this is a flyover of the drive up to South Middle, before on the left and the after on the right. The light quality of the new LED lights also produces a much more even light disbursement, as well as not having these spotlights of bright and dark and bright and dark. So it's actually safer for individuals while they're driving because their eyes aren't dilating, constricting as they drive, but then also just providing better illumination across the entire parking lot. And with that, we're looking at saving a considerable amount of emissions off the road. I don't have the numbers here, it's in the video, so I apologize. But the impact that we're having is in essence taking about 4 coal cars out of circulation from being burned. That's the equivalent of the carbon emissions that we're saving every year. And then that amounts to about $130,000 in savings every year with this project. So it is absolutely a monumental task, and it's been a great program initiative. So if we can move it to the next slide, that would be terrific. Thank you. So another energy project that we did was over at Southwest Middle. We did what's called a retrocommissioning project. So this is, in essence, optimizing a existing piece of equipment. So we have existing HVAC equipment. So this isn't time for capital replacement. This isn't time for changing it out yet. So we're looking to actually make the best of what we have. So doing this project, we're actually going in there, doing a detailed analysis over what can we do with controls and with maybe slight upgrades to the existing equipment. This is an example of we have adjusted the discharge air temperature when it's a little bit warmer outside. We're going to discharge cooler air. When it's cooler outside, we're going to discharge warmer air. It sounds very simplistic, but it's a mechanism that we were able to put in place. And with that, we're looking to save about $15,000 a year with that and the other combined initiatives within that particular project. Excuse me. So with that, I will transfer it over.
Hello. I was going to have a video too, but we'll refuse to fly the drone in the finance office. I don't know what's going on there. So we have a lot of goal 6 in finance and HR. The first one is, or the first 2 are actually developing of staffing and enrollment reports. This was mostly done by Amy in HR and tech services. And what it allowed to do, instead of staffing the buildings, based on our estimated projections, they could get day of reports and really strategically place teachers in each of the buildings. Which, it's the efficient way, and that's the way of the future, and I think it helps save on FTE headcount, over time. In the finance department ourselves, in the past year, we've done a lot of reorganization. The thought behind our reorganization was to make us more customer service, because at the end of the day, that's what finance is. We're customer service. People should just think of us as being there to help. Some of the changes now, more than one person can answer a question. You used to call finance and they'd say, oh, you got to wait till Brian's here. That still happens, but not nearly as much. We took the opportunity when someone retired to reduce the headcount. Instead of refilling the position, we just reduced headcount. In a couple of slides, I'll get to how we were able to do that. Another thing we have done is we've maximized our SSD reimbursement for the Early Childhood Center for the rooms they use at ECC and for the transportation, the SSD. On average, that's going to save us or bring us in more, about $150,000 a year, going forward annually, because we've just raised the amount they're going to reimburse us by taking better advantage of the percentage of the room and, better allocating costs of transportation. And that was something I couldn't have done without Will and Elena at ECC. And there was also a Goal 6 action team created. Again, I can't take credit for that. That's mostly Desi and SAT. But that team's, it's principals at each level, administrators. We get together, we review district processes. Some of the things we've looked at so far have been like the textbook tracking system. At the most recent meeting, we discussed the equal opportunity for schools. It's a newer committee or a newer team, but I think it's going to be really great and helpful to the district. Okay, one of the biggest changes finance has made has been in the benefits department. I've really focused on that probably in the past year because I have a strong belief that if we promote education and benefits, it lets employees know how great of a benefit package we have, hopefully cuts down on turnover. And two, if you know more about your benefits, it kind of, the health insurance items like that cause stress in your life. If we can provide better education, hopefully employees are less stressed. Less stress makes them more efficient. As part of the greatly increased outreach and education we've done, we had a big migration from the most expensive health plan to the lower cost plans, which, you think, oh wait, you're just getting people off the premium plan. I personally believe when you look at the numbers, if you're on the premium plan, you're wasting money out of your paycheck by paying too much for your premiums. You go to these other plans, it makes you a more educated consumer, and that's why we can offer those at a lower cost to the employees. The premium plan used to be well over half of our employees were on it. Now it's less than 50%, and every year that number's declining, and we're going to these more consumer-oriented plans. Last year, the health plan had a $1 million surplus. That's not going to happen too much more often in the future. We plan on more breaking even a little bit higher because, to me, we have a $1 million surplus, which we did need because the fund balance was getting low in that plan. It probably means we raised rates too much going forward. There's a lot of things, it's hard to predict what your claims will be, but I would hope for just small increases going forward. We've also simplified signing up for the 403 and 457 plans retirement. We've really increased the education on that. We've had a lot of people say, oh, I didn't even know there was a 403 or 457. It's like, well, now you know, and we made it real easy to sign up. And the next thing is there is a federal student loan forgiveness plan. And the PNEA was actually ahead of us on that. They had been educating teachers for about 6 months before we started. But essentially, if you've been a teacher for 5 years, the government will forgive, your loans $5,000. In some specialized areas, they'll forgive them up to $17,000. And then any government or nonprofit employee, after 10 years, they'll completely forgive your student loans. And that'll start, the forgiveness will be next October, but we're starting the education now. Because could you imagine the relief employees will feel that they no longer have to make these student loan payments? Again, that's one of those things I think it reduces stress. It's one less thing people have to worry about when they go home. So we really plan working with closely with the PNEA to just up that education, especially as we get closer to that date when the loans will actually be forgiven. We've also started reaching out to employees, say a teacher goes out, they're pregnant, they're on leave of absence. Well, they don't get a full year of service credits from PSRS, the Public Service Retirement System. We've started reaching out to them individually and saying, hey, you've only missed like 5% of a year. It would cost you this much to buy it back. You have 2 years to buy it back. We can help you. We can deduct just a little amount over each paycheck, and you'll get that full service credit for the year. And that's good for them because, you might now, you've been a teacher for 5 years, you don't have a full year credit, you don't think too much about it, but I'm sure when you're at 28 years, you're like, I wish I had bought that way back then at the lower price instead of now at the higher price. And we've also added some voluntary employee deductions. One was for a legal shield, another was for a gym membership. Those have been pretty well received. We probably have about 250 employees sign up between the two of them, and I take that as a positive sign. It's something we're offering that makes it makes it easier for the employees, and we get a group discount because we're offering it through Parkway, so they can get the gym membership or the legal shield much cheaper than they could on their own. So also in the past year, you've redesigned the fund balance policy, and the directives on increasing the fund balance growth by about 0.25% a year. We're on track for that. We also, on our operations action team, we meet once a month, and it's pretty much everyone up here, and we've been refining our data points. Patty's been really pressing us to say, hey, what can you do better? What can you do to track it? What are the actual numbers behind what you do so we can track it? We have also reimbursed changed the guidelines for employee reimbursement and our travel policy. You know, the guidelines, you know, they were older, and then there's been changes with as far as just good internal controls and IRS policies. So by improving them, I think we've put ourselves in line with the best internal controls you can have. It's really a best practice. And we have been updating our monthly financial reports. I'm sure everyone looks through all 60 pages or whatever those are every month. But you know, we've been changing it, making small improvements over time. Now, I'm sure if you looked at it now compared to 2 years ago, it looks like a completely different report. And our hopes is just constant improvement. I mean, I had a conversation with Patty today. She had 2 more suggestions for changes that I had to write down. So we're always working on that. And we're also, the CAFR, you know, we're always changing the way that looks to meet the newest standards. And we're hoping to get our budget book to meet what's considered a best practice and get awards similar for the budget that we get for our year-end financials. Okay, we've, another big change we've had in the past year was we had a lot of paper processes. We actually had triplicate forms for an invoice. You know, you'd sign it. Then I said, okay, that's, A, I have horrible handwriting, and B, I just don't like the idea of having paper in the age of digital. We have an accounting system, why not use it? So we've been able to change that, and we've gotten rid of most of the paper-based invoicing. It was, anything like that's a rough transition, but I was at a meeting yesterday morning just this morning with the budget secretaries, and they actually were saying positive things about it. I think 6 months ago, they weren't too happy about the change, but now that it's been going on, they actually like it. And we definitely like it in finance, and also going to a more digital base has made the department more efficient, which is why we were able to lower the FTE. We did something similar with the purchasing card. It's more digital. We download directly from the purchasing card company. It gives us a lot more information that we can put in our accounting system. That way, when a reviewer like Patty or someone is looking through, they can see a lot more information, and it's right at their fingertips with, you know, a few button clicks. We've also in our accounting system decreased the number of vendors in there by about 25%. We had a problem with a lot of duplicate vendors, or, you know, say University of Missouri. We had 10 University of Missouri vendors, and that's made us a lot more efficient because we can instantly pull up. We don't have to say, oh, which University of Missouri do we pay? We just pay the university, the single vendor that's in there, and we're, you know, clamping down to make sure we never run into that problem again. And as Patty mentioned earlier, we received a clean audit opinion last year. I see no reason we wouldn't receive it again this year, and we're waiting on the 2015 CAFR award. Last year, I think they notified us in late May, early June. I see no reason why we wouldn't receive it again this year. And I believe it is Mike's turn.
Thank you. Under Measure All Objective 4, Capital Improvements and Planning, one of the things that we have been working on for the last couple of years, and we're going to continue working on, is installation of an electrical phase monitoring by school. And you're all probably wondering, what does that mean? What that means is we'll be able to tell if the electric is on or off to the school remotely. And what drove this was, several years ago, we lost power at Northeast Middle. And we had a little generator down there that was running our backup lights, and we have backup power in all of our systems. And we didn't realize we'd lost power until about 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, the power dropped out about 7 o'clock in the evening. But with all the backup systems, until the generator ran out of gas, that's when the lights went out, and then we realized that then the rover, the security rover, realized that we didn't have power at that building. There was really no other way for them to pick up on that. So what we're doing is, where the electrical service entrance is, we're actually putting in remote sensing that tells us what the 3 phases, it tells us the phases they're on, okay? And that then gets sent back to security on a standalone screen. And if everything's green, they know we're good. So we've got our high schools and middle schools and several elementaries now on the system. We're doing this as we go through as we get some funds available, and then we're doing the maintenance, just sort of handling this as a go-to project. But we made it very easy for our security officers at night to be able to just look at that screen. If there's red on the screen, they realize it's maybe a phase. If we've got a phase, then we want to get our equipment shut down so we don't burn it up, or all 3 red dots tells us that we've lost power at the building. It's a good way, it's an easy way for our security folks to be able to tell we've lost power. The second measurable objective for us, first summer of capital projects from the bond issue were completed successfully, came in under budget, enough to be able to fund the Henry additions, which we're going to be doing this year. All of our projects have been bid except for the generator administration. That's the only one, and it's a small project. We're not worried about being able to get that one completed this summer. I think that as we go through the summer, we're looking at, I think, $30 million roughly in projects, about $40 million total under contract including what we have left over from last year. We got phase 2 of McKelvey. We've got security projects going on. It's got some things in technology. So we've got $40 million under contract, $30 million this summer. 14 of 30 sites will be in renovation work this year. So almost half the district will have something major done to it this summer. Biggest summer we've ever taken on in the history of Parkway. So it is an exciting time for us as we move forward in the next couple of months. Turn it over to Patty.
While we've gone through a whirlwind of accomplishments for this year, we also have a list of future projects that we're currently working on. Even today, we were meeting on redeveloping and refining the current purchasing and surplus policy or surplus property policies. Some of them are very dated. Some of the processes can have added efficiency and effectiveness, and some additional internal controls to help along the way. The other thing that, of course, is ongoing is our contract with Kelly Sports Marketing. Currently, we have $935,000 in revenue so far. That is under contract for the next 4 years. Currently still working with some customers, some corporate partners to come on board. We have 3 of the scoreboards in the football stadiums completely installed, and the one we are waiting for the permit from City of Manchester. We hope that that will be installed prior to the football season. We also are beginning the talks of our Facilities 2020 2.0, so getting ready for our next line of bond issues, and it's hard to imagine when we're just halfway through with the actual construction and everything from the first bond issue, but we're already starting to get in gear and get information in order to develop what will be part of those projects in possibly a 2018 bond issuance. We've recently undergone a feasibility study with Xerox to look not only at the facilities maintenance department, planning department, but also the purchasing department, really doing a deep dive into their processes and seeing where some duplications are happening, where maybe a lot of manual operations are taking place that there's possibilities for maybe digitizing, and then looking at the most efficient way that maybe we can allocate resources for that. So we're still in the study phase. They've completed the study, but they haven't given all the feedback. In the meantime, Mike is also working with the American Association of Physical Plant Administrators Performance Indicator Standards. Wanted to read that off, not to misquote any of those portions of that title, but what those are standards across physical plant operations as far as efficiencies about PMs, so those preventive maintenance points versus emergency breakdowns, what's the average service call take. So looking at those standards, and we're going to really do a deep dive into the facilities department and maybe redesign some things. Not keep it just the same old, but maybe have a facilities department 2.0 also. enhancements. So the other thing that I want to mention is I know in the upcoming months we'll have a program evaluation report for you for the Food and Nutrition Services Department. But in the meantime, they're not stopping either, because they're looking at lunch tray software, which will have online menu capability. And along with that, we'll have nutritional information for parents and students. And that's really important, especially if you have a child with allergies, to make sure that, we don't, make sure that the food is safe for the child to eat. Up next, I have Eric. He's going to talk about the Better Buildings Challenge.
So the Department of Energy has a program called the Better Buildings Challenge, which in essence is an opportunity for institutions and buildings to sign on to in essence commit to make a commitment to a certain amount of energy reduction targets. While Parkway has done a tremendous amount to reduce our energy consumption over the years, there's still more to be had. The way I see it, we're not there until we're net zero, meaning we generate as much electricity on site as we use in-house. So the first step for this, it could potentially, is we're looking at signing on to this pledge and to cut our energy use by 20% over 10 years. The image shows that there's a reduction. We are able to use a previous year, so that way it is a potentially a more attainable target over time. Once we start that project, we will set goals. After we make that commitment, we'll look at setting goals, then creating an action plan, and then looking to implement, and then reevaluating and continuing that process. This could potentially lead to some really exciting advanced building and operation standards that could lead to some really bold action and exciting physical plant and physical spaces within the districts.
And I get to talk about a fun one, and that's sustainable landscaping. So again, you say, well, what's sustainable landscaping? So I went on and found a definition. It's a stable and productive ecosystem that conserves the physical and biological processes occurring on that landscape. Designed and managed landscapes maintain hydrological function, plant and animal diversity, and biomass, soil integrity, and contribute to human wellness. What it means is we're going natural a little bit more. And we've hired a landscape architect that has expertise in this field. We already have designs in place and will be put in on the Henry project, on the North High project. We have a master plan put together for administration, and we are planning, it's 5 phases, and we're planning on doing phase 1 this fall, and hopefully phase 2, phase 1 this spring, and hopefully phase 2 in the fall. And that will actually, we're excited about that because so many people come to administration. We'll be able to use it as a learning tool as to what is sustainable landscape. And hopefully, when some of the principals come up and their PTOs want to do some work at their schools, we're going to learn enough about this to be able to help them start to work out in the field a little bit. So it's really an exciting time. Our grounds folks are excited about it because they're going to learn a whole new set of skills. And we're excited about it because I think it's going to make our facilities look better and put us in a better place. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to, I believe, Marlene.
So some of the future projects that we're involved in with the facility team is the North High cafeteria renovation, which we're really excited about. I know several years ago we did South High, and everybody really likes it. They say it kind of looks like a college or university scramble system. We feel like this will help the kids to really see what is being served. It will help with lessening the congestion. They'll be able to get in, get their food, get out, and hopefully increase participation. That's our goal. Some of the other things that we're looking at to do too would be sanitation and safety program. And with that, we want to reduce our chemical usage. We've already taken bleach out, but we also want to look at some of the other chemicals we're using every day because they can affect the environment when we're flushing them down our systems. It could be the dishwasher, it could just be the 3 drain sinks, it could be the floor washing too. So we're working on doing that. I have a company that I'm working with on that. Freezer cooler replacement at South High. I've been working with Scott Bennett and some of Mike's team, and the walls and the floor were literally falling apart. So we found that out last spring with the health department, and they were gracious to let us do some minor repairs and kind of hold things up, and we skated through because we knew we weren't in the position to replace it at that time. The actual material that's coming in is about $174,000, and the scope of the whole project is about $200,000, a little bit more, but we're working with the facility department to do that. Leading up to this, we've been trying to be very diligent in our other equipment usage. We have taken parts off of other freezers and coolers, particularly milk coolers, and we've tried to rework things so that we could save our capital money that we receive to go towards this project. So we had a heads up on this one, and working with Patty, she's really supported me a lot too to keep us in line with that budget. And I'm really excited because I think it will be more efficient. I'm not sure, I've only been here for 16 years, but that cooler and freezer have been there longer than that, and it gets a lot of use. So we've had a lot of repairs on the rooftop condensers, so I believe once we put this in, it'll be more efficient too. And I think then, who's next on the next one here? It's Will. Yay, Tag, you're it.
So 3 years ago, it was this board that gave us the green light, no pun intended, to purchase CNG buses, and we secured some funding through East-West Gateway Council, $1.5 million, and we purchased 30 CNG buses. And so now we've stretched out our purchasing cycle an extra year for 2018 to buy another 9 conventional style CNG buses, and we applied for some grant funding through DERA, which is Diesel Emission Reduction Act. And so we're going to secure another $281,000 to purchase our next group of buses, which is a lot of money. The difference between this grant and the last grant was we have to destroy the buses, so that's stretching them out. Well, we wouldn't get as much trade, so we're really trying to run them pretty hard the last year. We have to destroy the bus. That's part of the process, but we'll still net somewhere around $21,000 per bus. You got to drill a hole in the engine board. We'll get some scrap value, Eric, for the buses. It could be fun. It could be a fun project. And so that's in 2018, and these new buses will have the engine in the front. They're more aerodynamic. It's a smaller engine. The miles per gallon is closer to a diesel engine. And so we'll see some savings, not only because of the grant and the cost of our CNG fuel, but also because they're more efficient. So they'll look like our conventional buses, what they're called, the Type C engine in front. The alternative fuel tax credit, so it was in 2014 that we were able to apply for that and get money. 2015, Congress reauthorized it for 15 and 16. So in 2016, we're going to see another approximately $45,000 of savings, which again, it goes to the bottom line. It's about a cost at 25 cents per diesel gallon equivalent for those vehicles to operate. And then finally, there's an RFP that's being developed by Education Plus to study homeless transportation in the St. Louis area, and we've had a couple of meetings, and I think they've identified somewhere around $5 million in total spent by school districts on homeless transportation. So we're looking at ways to have some synergies with other districts and make it a better experience for kids too, a better environment on buses versus taxis potentially, improve the ride quality, the service, and then also reduce our costs, contain our costs. And so we think that's a study that's being developed now. We're going to look at, and Parkway's part of that.
And then if Jason was here, he would talk about all the upgrades in the data center. So we took stacks and stacks of old server equipment out, and then we've replaced it with newer, shorter, and less servers that actually have more room, more virtual storage room, et cetera, and of course are faster and use less energy. So what else are we working on? Well, in our Operations Action Team, we'll be utilizing the feedback from not only the focus group, but from the Project Parkway Steering Committee too, in order to redevelop or tweak our current measurable objectives. So we'll be working on those the next few months and bringing those forward most likely at the June retreat for your review and approval. So that is essentially what we have for you this evening. Any questions? So the drone was actually from the LED light company, correct? Correct.
Okay.
So we do have a drone here in Parkway, but these guys actually, both Eric and Will, actually did all that on their own.
It's amazing. Good job. Good job.
Something here tonight that not only are you a pretty face, but you have a real great service organization.
Aww, thank you.
And Marlene said something about if we knew what a hot shot was, and I looked right at Will. But he's a hot shot I'd like to have around.
Yeah, this is an awesome team to work with, I have to say.
Great work. Wonderful report. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that great report.
You're welcome.
Can't believe we're getting ready to work on another bond. Wow. 15.0 work session, there is none. Call for a special meeting, there is none. 17.0, our next anticipated closed session will be held on Wednesday, April 20th, 2016 at 6 p.m. here at Central Middle School. Details of the closed session will be posted within 24 hours of the anticipated meeting. And before I ask for a motion, I just want to say this lovely lady down at the end of the table here by Dr. Marty, Joyce Piesold, has done a great job filling in for Nikki, and we appreciate it. I meant to say something at the last board meeting, but these are the people that keep us in line. So thank you very much, Joyce.
Thank you.
And the most anticipated question of the night. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, everyone.
No. No.
No, we're.